Chapter 560, Earth Immortal 1. I am not a fool. Therefore, I have naturally considered the possibility that any existence at the sacred vessel stage or entering nirvana stage would immediately begin their true immortal advancement the moment they behold my main body. Moreover, I have already conducted trials in advance, such as infusing wisdom into individuals like Yun Jin and Gu Ryan or demonstrating my power in front of Baek Woon and Yeo Wai. These trials involved determining how much rank I could reveal to individuals at certain realms of cultivation before it becomes overwhelming for them to endure. Of course, I also took into account the possibility that John Myung-hoon and the others might have risen to the entering nirvana stage, which is why I understood the risk of them dying if I appeared directly before them. That is why I gave help to others and received help in return, conducting experiments to some extent. As a result of these experiments with Yeo Wai, Baek Woon, and others, I determined that exposing a body at the Qi refining 7th star level that I sent down to the lower realm would not affect my comrades, even if they reached the entering nirvana stage. Only after reaching this conclusion did I choose to reveal myself. Youuu. Seoeun. Hyun. Golden Shaking Bird's eyes go mad as she charges towards me. On the plane of true immortality, a river of bird heads encircles me, unleashing a relentless barrage of lightning strikes. Stay still for a moment. Quorum. But this is not the lower realm where my power is constrained, but in the true immortal plane, where I can fully unleash my power. There is no reason for me to lose. I seize the essence of Golden Shaking Bird in one go and forcefully seal her into her transformation form, gripping her by the neck. Guk. Krrk. Thud. Hit by the impermanent sword, she is sealed within Du Wa's body and glares at me with tears streaming down her face. You, to my master. My master. Quiet down and look around. It's not entirely my fault. Kugaguk. I tighten my grip on Golden Shaking Bird's neck, applying even more pressure. The whites of her eyes gradually become visible, and as Golden Shaking Bird fails to draw in spiritual energy or breathe, she begins to froth at the mouth. Shifting my gaze away from her, I turn to the spot where John Myung-hoon began his advancement. Kugagugagu. The shed flesh of John Myung-hoon, who was forced to confront death by me, begins to swell. Simultaneously, his flesh transforms into a vestige and starts wailing. Kwaya. The vestige with 6 arms and 3 heads howls like mad as it loses its original form. Normally, the sacred master of the middle realm would expel John Myung-hoon's vestige out of the middle realm and into the interdimensional void, but the sacred master of this middle realm called the Divine Thunder Realm does not respond. Did they say John Myung-hoon killed them? TCH. It seems the successor sacred master hasn't been picked yet, or perhaps they are in the process of reviving. For now, to prevent the entering nirvana vestige from wreaking havoc on middle realm, I summon Yeo Wai. Accept my command, twin constructing chains. Restrain the newly born vestige of John Myung-hoon. Clink. Chweraruk. Responding to my command, Yeo Wai appears in the form of chains before growing huge and flying forward to restrain the distorting entering nirvana level vestige. Kwaya. John Myung-hoon's vestige screams, attempting to break free from the twin constructing chains. However, the chains instead absorb the power of the vestige, converting and accumulating it at both ends. The immortal art created by Yeo Wai when she became a true person is twin constructing twin destruction, Songza, Songmate. Consuming heaven and earth's spiritual energy to create antimatter, which then causes mutual destruction, is her immortal art. The ability of the twin constructing chains, which were refined by such a being, is to bind the target, absorb the power they exert to break free, and use it to generate both antimatter and matter. At both ends of the twin constructing chains, the bird skull at one end begins to glow, emitting transparent glass true fire. Simultaneously, the human skull at the opposite end shines, generating and storing antimatter within. Since I refined it, the part that creates matter releases glass true fire, making it capable of torturing the bound opponent. Wereruruk. Kaiwaya. John Myung-hoon's vestige writhes in agony as the glass true fire engulfs it, screaming violently before losing consciousness and fainting. Quajajajijik. As the vestige faints, lightning bursts out around it. But the twin constructing chains, having absorbed some of Golden Shaking Bird's power, also absorbs the lightning. It restrains the opponent, devours the energy they exert in trying to break free, generates glass true fire and antimatter, and stores and releases them to torture the restrained target. Additionally, by absorbing and generating lightning, it can electrocute its victim, functioning as a Dharma treasure designed for binding and torturing. That is the twin constructing chains. In emergencies, the accumulated antimatter can also be used to attack the enemy, making the twin constructing chains a highly versatile immortal treasure. Clang, clang, clang. The twin constructing chains completely enclose and seal John Myung-hoon's fainted vestige. Watching this, I ponder my thoughts. For John Myung-hoon to suddenly advance to true immortality just by looking at me is absurd. I'm only at the Chi refining 7-star level. Injecting wisdom into an entering nirvana is absurd. I didn't even intentionally reveal my rank. Rather, I deliberately suppressed it. There's no way this should have happened. More than that, I focus on John Myung-hoon's fate. Ever since reaching the entering nirvana stage, observing someone's fate directly has become no longer difficult. After observing his fate for a while, I finally understand. So that's it. An ender can only receive misfortune from a true immortal. I witnessed the black misfortune entangled like clouds around his red fate. While it's true that looking at me triggered his advancement, the cause lies with you. What's the point of baring your teeth at me? I gripped the golden shaking bird's neck tighter, turning my gaze back to John Myung-hoon. That's right. Regardless of the circumstances, a true immortal is still a true immortal. Golden shaking bird followed me here to be together with John Myung-hoon as a companion. That alone was treated as a gift for John Myung-hoon, and that gift turned entirely into misfortune. Look at the cloud of misfortune. That cloud is connected to you. Gurk. During the time of the Golden Divine was stronger than you, so receiving your help didn't cause any issues. But now it's different. Because John Myung-hoon is weaker than you, all he can receive from you is misfortune. The misfortune surrounding John Myung-hoon's fate originates entirely from Golden Shaking Bird. It has no connection to me. So even if an ender becomes a true immortal, they don't spread misfortune to one another. Well, it makes sense. If they did, every opportunity obtained from previous generation of enders would have been accompanied by catastrophic misfortune. The benefits he gained by being together with you itself became misfortune, leading to the John Myung-hoon, who would normally remain unaffected by seeing me. Coincidentally, see the seal of the Northern Dipper sealing Immortal flag. Through that gap, he coincidentally gazed upon my true body, coincidentally witnessed death within it, and coincidentally failed to control himself, forcing his immediate true immortal advancement. Wawum. Reading the history within the heaven and earth spiritual energy, I comprehend the whole story. Listen carefully, Golden Shaking Bird. While I am hesitant to give the exact information, John Myung-hoon and I come from the same homeland as Yangsu-jin. All the people from there can only receive misfortune from true immortals. Gurk. That misfortune grows stronger the greater the gap in cultivation. However, because of the absolute disparity between the entering nirvana stage and true immortality, even minor misfortune seems to have an amplified effect. If John Myung-hoon successfully advances to true immortality, he'll be fine. However, if you meet my other comrades in the future, do not approach recklessly or try to give them anything. Understand. I release Golden Shaking Bird's neck and gaze at John Myung-hoon's fate. For now, him seeing you caused misfortune, so it's highly likely that John Myung-hoon will fail his true immortal advancement. Wawum. I draw the impermanence sword and speak. So, being someone from the same homeland, whose help would cause no problems, I'll be back after briefly assisting him. Keying. The impermanence sword. What my heart symbolizes, which began as the formless sword, is freedom. Thus, it can move through any plane or dimension. Wherever the impermanence sword can reach, I can go. Wawum. I follow John Myung-hoon's fate. The interdimensional void, the source river, the eastern heaven flower field, the underworld. Where is it? Where? Is it there? John Myung-hoon's fate is heading to the underworld. And from deep within the underworld, the oldest one, will is reaching out towards John Myung-hoon. Keying. I channel my soul into the impermanence sword and, sitting in a lotus position at that spot, cross the boundary of the underworld. Wawum. The only times I entered the underworld was when I learned the ghost path method and used nether perception to cross the outskirts of the underworld. And while attempting to step foot into the domain of purity, I was intercepted by the heavenly venerable of the underworld and immediately sent from the interdimensional void to the deepest depths of the underworld. For that reason, this time, crossing the outskirts to the true domain of the underworld is essentially my first time. Cool. As I cross the boundary of the underworld, all light disappears. An eternal, unblemished darkness. In this darkness, the only way to perceive the surroundings is through scent. In truth, not all beings possess organs like eyes. There are many beings in this world who perceive not through light, but through sound, scent, touch, and other senses. I feel as though I have become one of those beings. Not only scent, but sound and touch gradually become perceptible to me. It is when all senses, except sight, are felt. I feel as if I am reaching the nascent soul stage. No, to be precise, should I say the nascent soul stage seems to replicate this sensation? A flashback. As I sense the vibrations around me, my life flashes before my eyes. The entirety of my life, The entire history stored within the canvas of myriad forms and connections brushes through my mind. A taiji, seems to appear before my eyes. As it spins rapidly, it forms a helix, luoshen. And through that helix, all of my regressions and history flashes past me. But unlike during my nascent soul advancement, it does not pass by quickly. Rather, like the canvas of myriad forms and connections, it flows past very slowly, allowing me to revisit the scenes I wish to see again. However, instead of viewing these histories, I focus my consciousness on the center of the helix. At the center of that helix, a certain being is watching me. Womb. As I concentrate my consciousness on the center of the helix, it transforms into a ripple, something like a shimmering mirage, an endlessly vast wave. That vibration soon seems to manifest as heat, turning into flames that engulf the surroundings. Kugugugugu. Before I know it, I find myself in a place entirely engulfed in flames. In front of me stands a massive giant god engulfed in flames. The giant god wears a crown and is dressed in a judge's robe. The seat upon which the giant god sits is a colossal blade mountain, but the giant god's sheer size makes even the mountain feel as small as a cushion. On both sides of me, countless ghost kings, yakshas, rakshasas, and asuras stand in neat rows, staring at me. Beyond these monsters lies a seemingly endless valley of blade mountains, filled with countless souls wandering in agony, bleeding as they stumble through the valley of blades. I chuckle at the strangely familiar scene and bow towards the giant god before me. I learned this back in the Black Ghost Valley, about the 10 underworld kings who govern the underworld. This mere immortal Seo Unhyun greets the killing judge of the underworld 10 kings, the Blade Mountain True Lord, Your Majesty Qin Guang. Horroric, the Blade Mountain True Lord, Qin Guang, gazes at me for a moment before speaking. All tribunals, leave for now. Pot. At that decree, the yakshas, rakshasas, asuras, and ghost kings surrounding me vanish in an instant. Now, only great King Qin Guang and I remain in this judgment hall of the flame-covered Blade Mountain. Does the great king have something to say to me? At my words, great King Qin Guang remains silent for a moment before speaking. How is it? The underworld. It is unique. And this. I glance at the fire, illuminating the surroundings, and murmur softly. The sky of the underworld is dark, and in places without flames, it is so black that one cannot see an inch ahead. However, wherever the flames burn is bright. Is this not light? I thought this would be a world of complete darkness, but it seems that's not the case. Nothing can escape light. That is why Radiance Hall governs life. However, nothing is absolute except for the 3 laws. No matter how mighty light is, it cannot escape the changes caused by differences in interpretation. Horroric. Flames rise above great King Qin Guang's hand. The forces that symbolize Radiance Hall and life interpret light as particles. It is the perspective that everything can be explained and nothing can escape form. However, we interpret light as waves. Wawum. It distorts. My vision blurs, and a shimmering haze seems to envelop the surroundings. Some things cannot be explained, and there are no absolutes. Form may not exist, and it does not have to be continuous. That is the wave. Thus, even if one cannot see in the underworld, it is possible to hear, smell, touch, and taste. In other words, receive signals. Horroric. Waves are also heat. That is why we inevitably use fire. The karmic fire of the previous chief judge, the speech fire, Hinhua, of the current chief judge, and even the killing fire, so that this king wields all are born from the same principle. I finally understand why the judges primarily use fire, and I feel something strange. Somehow, it sounds as though the judges of the underworld wield the power of light. That is correct. Originally, the very first seat was the origin essence of light. Only one existed. After the very first origin essence, countless beings rose through the path of the heavens, interpreting light in their own ways and dividing it amongst themselves. That is how the numerous origin essences of today came to be. Even our Lord, the Imperial Venerable, is said to have been born after Radiance Hall itself, which speaks volumes about the history and power of the Radiance Hall. That, I ask with a stunned expression. I do not know why great King Qin Guang is telling me this, but I decided it's best to ask while I have the chance. Then, why is the Imperial Venerable called the oldest one? According to what the great king said, isn't the oldest existence the Radiant's supreme deity? What is important is continuity. Suppose you plant a seed, let it sprout, and nurture it into a tree for 100 years. Then, you take the fruit from that tree, remove its seeds, plant them in the ground, burn the previous tree, and nurture the new one for another 100 years. Is the age of that tree 100 years or 200 years? I do not understand what you mean. The origin essences under the Imperial Venerables grasp total 14. Including the one the Imperial Venerable seized control of, It is 15 in total. Those seats have accompanied the Imperial Venerable for a long time, and have been referred to as the Imperial Venerable and the Dharma Kings who protect the Imperial Venerable. But those Dharma Kings are not all the same beings. This king, too, inherited my seat from a predecessor. And, just like the underworld, Radiance Hall is the same. They, too, inherit the seats over time. Thus, while Radiance Hall may be the oldest force, the oldest entity is the Imperial Venerable. Great King Qin Guang speaks ambiguously while extinguishing the flame burning in their palm. Is it not interesting? That light can divide into everything depending on interpretation. If dividing based on interpretation and merging again based on interpretation is the seed of light. Have you ever considered that? As my knowledge is limited, I struggle to follow what the Great King is saying. Please enlighten me. In the end, all things can never escape the gaze of light. If everything was originally light, even the underworld, that is said to be untouched by light, cannot truly escape the domain of light. In fact, during the era when the Radiance 8 Immortals were the Radiance 10 Heavenly Lords, the Radiance Hall appeared nearly omniscient. Radiance 10 Heavenly Lords. I tilt my head at the unfamiliar term, but shudder from a chill at Great King Qin Guang's subsequent words. Then what do you think could be the method to transcend light? If being unable to escape no matter what means is the authority of the first seat, is there not only one answer? To go back before the first seat, pardon, that is precisely the plan of the Imperial Venerable and the will of the underworld. To trace back the unending history of the world and finally reach the time before the first. To go further back than light itself, and through this, transcend the light. That is our goal. Kugugugugu. Great King Qin Guang extends their hand forged of flames and blades. I have heard from the Imperial Venerable. You met the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord in the Head Realm and heard of the Way of Light, did you not? Flinch. I feel chills rising over my body at those words. Does this mean the Heavenly Venerable of the underworld can freely observe what happens in the Head Realm? When I think about it, it makes sense. The elder sister of Soak Village in the Head Realm was the Heavenly Venerable of the underworld. And according to the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord, the only beings authorized to interfere in the Head Realm are those from Radiance Hall. Yet, the Heavenly Venerable of the underworld could so easily send an incarnation to the Head Realm and wield authority there. Does this mean they are in existence somewhat outside the laws set by Radiance Hall? Even the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord lost their memory and acted accordingly until they reached the Chi refining fourth star in the Head Realm. But the Heavenly Venerable of the underworld can retain their memory and have the authority to revise the history of the Head Realm even in the body of a mortal? As my thoughts race, Great King Qin Guang continues to speak. The Way of Light oppresses all living beings with fate. They proclaim this to be true freedom, but that is sheer nonsense. The Way of Salt, mentioned by the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord, does that not fit far better with the world? Granting all beings the right to resist fate, would you not say that is true freedom? The owner of Salt Mountain, the Salt Sea Supreme Deity, was a sworn ally who shared the same will as the Imperial Venerable. Thus, if you claim to have inherited your master's legacy, join us in the aspiration of the underworld. That's right. Ultimately, Great King Qin Guang's long discourse is an offer to recruit me. Chapter 561, Earth Immortal, 2. If you have reached the immortal family on your own strength, surely even the Imperial Venerable will not simply taxidermize you. I let out a groan at the imposing presence and words of Great King Qin Guang and contemplate their proposal. At the same time, a certain afterimage emerges in front of me. I see. Wawoom. A figure appears before my eyes. It is Yuo, who recently proposed the path of the immortal beast to me. Sacred Master Yuo telling me to walk the path of an Earth Immortal. It was the plan of you all, it seems. Indeed, you have the potential to become a remarkable judge, an excellent reaper. Great King Qin Guang's continued words make my body flinch. You currently carry a powerful misfortune. That calamity tied to the Great Mountain Supreme Deity is the gaze of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity. If you were to declare that you will walk a path other than the path of repentant enlightenment, the Supreme Deity's retaliation will most likely strike you immediately. However, the underworld can protect you. No matter if it is the Great Mountain Supreme Deity, they cannot casually invade the domain of the Imperial Venerable like they could with Radiance Hall. I feel a bitter smile rise at their words. So, if I don't rise to face them through the path of repentant enlightenment, I will immediately be killed, huh? Surely you harbor the ambition to one day become an immortal lord. Do you intend to oppose the Great Mountain Supreme Deity with the realm of a great net immortal? Yu Su Ryan's subordinate, lacking most of their original memories, may have optimistically claimed that there is a chance if you rely on interpretation. But I will tell you the truth. That is absolutely impossible. Under the principle that immortal cultivation is repentant enlightenment, do you truly believe that someone like you could defeat the great mountain supreme deity's enlightenment? The one who determines the direction of the seat's interpretation is the owner of the seat. If the great mountain supreme deity has determined their own direction of repentant enlightenment, all beings beneath must adhere to that interpretation. Kugugugugu. Gradually, Great King Qin Guang's momentum begins to press down against me. Join the underworld. Uphold the Imperial Venerable's great will together with us. Transcend the way of light, and help root the true way of salt into the 3,000 great thousand worlds. Do not walk the path of impossibility under the great mountain supreme deity and meet a futile end. Neither this judge nor the other judges want to see someone like you, who has inherited the legacy of Salt Mountain, be wasted in vain. They, who have been pressing down on me with their momentum, soften their aura and extends their hand, coaxing me. If the Imperial Venerable intends to taxidermize you within the deepest depths of the underworld, this judge will plead on your behalf. You are a talent necessary for the underworld. Please, come to us. Then I asked back. I also believe that the way of salt is correct. However, I once heard this from the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord. The way of salt cannot distinguish between good and evil. And the greatest evidence of that is my senior brother, the Great Mountain Supreme Deity. Am I wrong? I wonder. Regarding the good and evil of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity, Great King Qin Guang seems to adopt a somewhat ambiguous attitude for some reason. However, I speak without hesitation. My senior brother's way is evil and devilish. I undoubtedly support the way of salt. But I cannot, under any circumstances, support my senior brother, the Great Mountain Supreme Deity. For that reason, I also cannot fully support the way of salt that embraces even the Great Mountain Supreme Deity. Your Majesty claims the Imperial Venerable envisions a world beyond light? It is deeply impressive. However, will the world envisioned by the Imperial Venerable be solely just? Will it not simply be a world where supreme deities like the Great Mountain Supreme Deity run rampant? How daring! Kugugugugu. Great King Qin Guang's eyes flash with ominous light as they press down on me. However, I refuse to yield and lift my head high. Thank you for offering me a place in the underworld. However, I will find my own path. This is something I cannot change. I will seek the seat of repentant enlightenment. And if it means your comrade will be eternally taxidermized and never to return. Wawoom. The fate of John Myonghun flickers before my eyes. The red fate, like a thread of intent, stretches towards somewhere. That red thread leads to the deepest depths of the underworld. It points directly to the audience chamber of the oldest one. John Myonghun is currently having a private meeting with the Heavenly Venerable of the underworld. I see. Now I understand why you are holding me here. Great King Qin Guang is detaining me to make their recruitment offer while ensuring that John Myonghun's private meeting with the Heavenly Venerable of the underworld remains undisturbed. And I look at John Myonghun's fate, the straight red thread, and realize something. Follow one's fate and walk the straight path. This is the attitude Yang Sujin spoke of that one must adopt in the underworld. Through this, I grasp something. Since earlier, you have been pressing me down with your overwhelming presence and showing me the scenery of the Blade Mountain, trying to suppress me. But you have not actually been able to touch me. It seems that judges surprisingly cannot interfere with spirits freely. Is that not right? Wawoom. I take a step towards Great King Qin Guang. I now understand what it means to walk a straight path and what it means to walk a crooked one. I will retrieve my comrade in return. Please forgive my rudeness. Step. Resolving not to listen to Great King Qin Guang any further, I walk forward without hesitation. Great King Qin Guang fades from my sight like an illusion. At the same time, a certain wisdom strikes my mind. I see. The judgment method of the underworld is pain. It is making those who cause pain to others realize that pain themselves. Like the flashback I saw earlier, sinners are shown their own flashbacks. Within it, scenes of regret and moments of wrongdoing to others are replayed endlessly until they themselves come to repent. Crunch, crunch, crunch. This is the judgment method of the underworld. The Blade Mountain hell I saw behind Great King Qin Guang earlier. The wandering spirits in that Blade Mountain hell are all trapped in the cycle of their murderous karma, punishing themselves with the blade of their own conscience until they repent. Even those who lacked a heart in life and felt no guilt would gradually awaken to pain through endless repetition, leading them to repentance. But it has no effect on me. I walk through a world made of blades. A world that seems similar to the Blade Mountain hell. The name of this world is the canvas of myriad forms and connections. The ones I killed, the ones I caused pain to, I remember them all. The glass true fire forged from their pain endlessly scorches my heart. I have reflected and repented countless times. The hell others only experience after death, I have repeatedly recreated with my own hands while alive. Because that is my life, my cause and connection. Life is repentant enlightenment. I have reached this point by constantly reflecting on myself. Therefore, I have no intention of abandoning the path of repentant enlightenment. This is already my life. Thus, the underworld cannot do anything to me. Their role is to force unrepentant sinners to repeat their wrongs. But I am no longer one of their sinners, for I have already repented countless times. And to those who are not sinners, they are fair and kind above all else. I keep walking forward. Yang Sujin clearly instructed me to go directly along the narrow and straight path. Perhaps it means to follow one's fate without looking back on the history of one's life. Because, after all, to look back on the history of one's life is to acknowledge one's death. So, it seems to mean to experience death but not accept it, and to walk into the domain of life by following one's fate. However, I act contrary to Yang Sujin's advice. I do not take the narrow path. I do not take the straight path. Instead, I choose the winding and most circuitous path. Countless pasts and flashbacks brush past me. The hells overseen by the great kings, Qin Guang, Chu Jiang, Chu Jiang, Chu Jiang, Song Di, Wu Guan, Yin Luo, Bian Cheng, Bang Cheng, Tai Shan, Kalsan, Ping Dang, Feng, Du Shi, Feng, Wu Dao Zhuanlin, Feng. Welcome me. TL. Changing the name Yama to Yin Luo. So, the full title and name would be the Yama True Lord Yin Luo. Editor. These are the 10 kings of the underworld in Chinese mythology, each the magistrate of one of the 10 courts. Not in the above order though. Ping Ding and Du Shi have been swapped. The hells of the underworld are none other than the repetition of one's own sins. I endlessly repeat it. I see their hells, reflect my life upon those hells, and let out a bitter smile. They are all hells I have already experienced. They cannot judge me, for I am already being judged. The pain that even beings devoid of hearts are forced to feel under the hands of Rakshasas, Yakshas, and Asuras is the endless regression that is the underworld. Within each person's flashback and eternal regression, those who understand the pain overseen by the underworld 10 kings and repent for their wrongs are released. That is the law of the underworld. But eternal regression? I have done it countless times. I enter the final hell. Crossing the world of black darkness overseen by great King Wu Dao Zhuanluan, I contemplate the shadows of my life. And so, I pass through the darkness hell, traversing all the hells. Step. Thus, I finally arrive beyond all the hells and reach the deepest place of the underworld. I once again arrive at the deepest depths where the oldest one resides. Kugugugugu. Previously, I had to approach quite close to see it, but now, I can see it even from afar. Perhaps it is designed to become visible from a distance only to those who have experienced every hell. White wheel. Now that I have experienced every hell, this will ask me where I wish to reincarnate. However, I ignore the question and approach the wheel. Having drawn nearer, I finally see the red light cluster, presumed to be John Myung-hoon. The light cluster is suppressed by the presence of the deep darkness beneath the wheel, unable to move. If it were Yang Sujin, he would likely have followed his fate and simply left after seeing the heavenly venerable of the underworld. But John Myung-hoon doesn't seem to have the capability to withstand the presence of the heavenly venerable of the underworld. Quack. Grasping John Myung-hoon's soul, I speak. It has been a while. I have come to fetch my friend. Now that I have found him, I will take my leave. At my words, the heavenly venerable of the underworld, the oldest one, seems to smile. Huaruruk. Then, a candle scattering the light of salt appears before me, and a shadow emerges once more. The shadow opens its mouth and speaks in a voice I can comprehend. To dive into the underworld without hesitation to rescue a friend, it reminds me of the vast, cold, heavenly lord in their youth. Now taking the face of Kong Minhee, the shadow smiles and gestures towards John Myung-hoon. Come, give it a try. At those words, I look at John Myung-hoon. The one who had been a red cluster of light has regained a somewhat human form as I grasped him. John Myung-hoon sits on a chair of black light, his face blank as though devoid of all will. I look between him and the shadow before speaking. Since you have granted permission, I will take him with me. Wu Wong. Behind me, the 3 great ultimates emerges. Simultaneously, the wheel overlaps with the 3 great ultimates. Please forgive my rudeness. Kugugugugu. So long as I have repented for my sins, the beings of the underworld cannot interfere with me. If that's the case, all that remains is to bring my friend back. The immense force amplified by the 3 great ultimates, and the wheel begins to forcibly lift John Myung-hoon from the chair. Arise, John Myung-hoon. Quaduduk. John Myung-hoon does not rise easily. I realize that he is trapped in some kind of cycle of reincarnation. Just like the hells I recently passed through, John Myung-hoon is endlessly repeating the past within his flashback. But this is different from hell. No, that is more akin to heaven, Tingul. Towards the man, endlessly repeating the days of happiness with Jin Sohei, I shout loudly, "Arise, John Myung-hoon." With that, John Myung-hoon begins to rise from the chair, driven by my brute strength. His buttocks are stuck to the chair, but I pay no mind and start tearing him away from it. Buta-doota-dook. John Myung-hoon's buttocks begin to rip away. And finally, Jung, with part of his buttocks ripped off, John Myung-hoon is pulled off the chair by my hand. Kwa-wah. John Myung-hoon's spirit sheds bloody tears, but I pay no mind and sling his spirit over my shoulder. Turning to the shadow of the heavenly venerable of the underworld, I speak. I will be taking him. Farewell, until we meet again. Ho ho ho. The heavenly venerable of the underworld, wearing Kong Min-hee's face, laughs brightly. You are just like the vast cold heavenly lord. They, too, crudely ripped their companion free and took them away. Wawoom. Before long, John Myung-hoon has returned back to his spirit form. The chair where John Myung-hoon sat on also turns into a fragment of darkness, and attached to that darkness is what appears to be a piece of the flesh of John Myung-hoon's buttocks. The piece of flesh seems to have been torn off and stuck there. Soon, that piece of flesh also transforms into a form of light and shines within the darkness. What remains there is his lingering attachment. Keep that in mind. I will let him go for now, but as long as his attachment remains in this place, he can return here at any time. I will remember. I carry John Myung-hoon and walk forward. The heavenly venerable of the underworld and the white will also disappear like illusions. I experienced hell, while John Myung-hoon experienced heaven. What is clear is that both of us have experienced the underworld. Pat it. In the distance, I see light. It is the domain of life. John Myung-hoon flies towards the domain of light even faster than I do. He will now embrace life and death within the domain of light, and, with a high probability, successfully advance to true immortality. As for me, I turn to look behind me. Countless illusions and worldly concerns seize me. It occurs to me that if I remain here, I too can experience the heaven that John Myung-hoon just encountered. As I look back, I embrace the countless illusions. Thank you. All of my worldly concerns and heart demons. All of my connections. Let us go together. All of them. I will carry on my back. And so, with them in my embrace, I leave the domain of the underworld. As I exit the domain of the underworld, a certain wisdom is instilled within me. It seems to be a reward from the heavenly venerable of the underworld for experiencing all the hells. It shows me a certain scene. That is, it is a transmission sent by the great mountain supreme deity to the domain of the heavenly venerable of the underworld. Upon reading the transmission, I flinch in surprise. THEALLIANCESHALLBETERMINATED. 3,000 years ago. That is, the time when I faced Seo Huiol using filling the heavens governing view and shattered the fates of Yun Wei and Han Wan. At that point in time, the great mountain supreme deity Guak Am broke a certain alliance that had existed with the forces of the underworld. The truth of that time unfolds before my eyes. Chapter 562, Earth Immortal 3. Chapter 562, Earth Immortal 3. A world of endless darkness. The underworld. A certain will was transmitted there. It was a will mingled with the scent of thousands, no, hundreds of millions of corpses. ITISNOWYOUMUSTACT. The great mountain supreme deity Guak Am was communicating with the heavenly venerable of the underworld. From within the deep darkness, a certain gaze extended outward, heading somewhere that I in that place. There was a vision of Han Wan, who was granted his immortal title by Guak Am, and Yun Wei, whose fate had been toyed with by them. The twisted history of these two unfolded, and the stars of fate marked by the great mountain supreme deity collapsed. However, even as the stars of fate crumbled, the great mountain supreme deity appeared unconcerned, as if the deaths of Han Wan and Yun Wei at that moment fulfilled their plan. Wawoom. The gaze emerging from the deep darkness shifted toward a different place. It is the place where Oh Hyeseo, who was struck by Han Wan's great mountain splitting emperor technique before his death, was located. Deep within Oh Hyeseo's soul. After the great mountain supreme deity recognized Seo Eunhyun's plan, they tolerated the collapse of the stars of fate and used Han Wan's great mountain splitting emperor technique as a medium to transfer their immortal title deep within Oh Hyeseo's spirit. Then, in the moment she was transported to the true devil realm by Seo Huiol, the great mountain supreme deity activated their power. Using the remnant of Yu Haote left in the true devil realm, they manipulated the karmic fire from cedarwood painting to converge. Huaruruk. The karmic fire clung to Oh Hyeseo, who had fallen into the true devil realm. On that day, Oh Hyeseo died once, and then she revived from death, together with her authority. To be precise, The immortal title of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity fused with her authority, forcibly resurrecting her. Afterward, using the power of the Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique, they expelled the karmic fire from her body. Thus, the Great Mountain Supreme Deity selected Ohiasio as the new medium to entrust their immortal title. Taking advantage of the gap created when Blood Een self-destructed and a hole was torn in the Sun and Moon heavenly domain, the Great Mountain Supreme Deity summoned Ohiasio to their own domain. The karmic fire left in the true devil realm was naturally returned to the netherworld, and Ohiasio, now in the grasp of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity, was utterly crushed and experienced death once again. In that state, they contacted the underworld. WHILETHERSDIVERTTHEGAZEOFLIGHT WEMUSTPROCEEDTOTHEAUDIENCECEHAMBEFORTH. The Great Mountain Supreme Deity's message caused tension among all beings of the underworld. Now, the grand plan their Imperial Venerable has spoken of all this time was about to begin. The Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, the Liberation Supreme Deity, and others were to collaborate and launch an assault on the head realm. However, at that moment, the Heavenly Venerable of the underworld uttered a statement no one could comprehend. At first, the Yamatru Lord Yen Luo initially assumed they received the message incorrectly, but to them, the commands of the Heavenly Venerable of the underworld are absolute. So Yen Luo conveyed the response as they received it. The Imperial Venerable states, "It is not permissible." WHAT? For a moment, there was no reply from the Great Mountain Supreme Deity's side. Then, after a brief silence, a response filled with wrath arrived. FORTHISMOMENT IHAVESETTHEBOARDSINCEFIFTYTHOUSANDYEARSAGO TAKINGADVANTAGEOFBONGSADVANCYONENOTICING NOTTOMENTIONEPARETHAT ANDNOWYOUSAYWHAT. The Imperial Venerable has deemed the chances of success to be insufficient. Great Mountain Supreme Deity must. DOYOUNOTIINTENDTOAVENGETRUDGEOFMYMASTER. Then, a will flowed out from the depths of the underworld, responding personally instead of Yen Luo. Not permissible. And then, the overwhelming voice of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity, filled with immense wrath, resounded through the underworld. THENITOOWILLONGERHOLDBACK IWILLNOLONGERRESPECTYOU WHOHASBECOMESENILE. At their words, all the reapers and judges of the underworld ignited their flames in fury. The entire underworld seemed to hum with their rage. THEALLIANCESHALLBETERMINATED. Kugugugugu. With that, the Great Mountain Supreme Deity's response was cut off. However, the being in the deepest and darkest depths watched the place where the Great Mountain Supreme Deity resides. Earth Axis Heavenly Domain. A devilish world, filled with pain, groans, and darkness. There, the Great Mountain Supreme Deity raises their hand. In their hand is something new. It is none other than the salt mountain formed of salt crystals which Seo Un-hyun had hurled away into the interdimensional void after sending off Baek Rin and Yukyo after encountering the Great Mountain Supreme Deity. Wai Yang. The light of the salt mountain seemed to respond to the will of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity, brightly illuminating the surroundings. The shrine of the Salt Sea Supreme Deity shall open its doors and welcome the successor. Flash. In an instant, the Great Mountain Supreme Deity was sucked into the depths of the Salt Mountain within the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain. Pasasasa. The Salt Mountain made of salt crystals appeared to shine in the void before completely vanishing. What remained in the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain were the corpses ruthlessly crushed by the Great Mountain Supreme Deity's authority. the malicious spirits that had grown by devouring their power. And finally, Ohio, who, after being crushed by the great mountain supreme deity, was now in the process of reviving by absorbing the surrounding energy. From the depths of the darkness, the observing being quietly muttered, "Did they consume the relic of their predecessor to reach the outer sea?" With that, the vision flooding my mind ends. This memory is. It is the memory of the heavenly venerable of the underworld. The being has shown me where the great mountain supreme deity has disappeared to and how Ohio, who had been far from Blood-Een at the time, ended up in the Earth-Axis heavenly domain. Seeing, as I finish watching the scenes of the past, I sense a will surging into my mind. It is a deep and vast well. They are preparing a mantra that transcends imagination. Keep annihilation in mind. Pat it. I step back into reality. At the same time, as I confirm the presence of Ham Jean and Uy as they pass through the outskirts of the underworld, I completely withdraw from the underworld. A mantra transcending imagination? Keep annihilation in mind. It is a warning from the heavenly venerable of the underworld. For now, I understand why the heavenly venerable of the underworld abruptly canceled the plan to invade the audience chamber. That being perceives the regressions and must know that entering the audience chamber in the previous cycle resulted in defeat. Thanks to the regression, the calamity was averted, and so was the event that could have led to the annihilation of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity, Liberation Supreme Deity, and Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable. Knowing there is no chance of success, the long-prepared plan was suddenly abandoned. However, the Great Mountain Supreme Deity was not fully informed due to certain reasons. I was also wondering why the Great Mountain Supreme Deity, who occupies the seat of repentant enlightenment and is an existence that is a superior counterpart of myself, was so persistently desiring me, but it was because the alliance was broken. I come to understand the truth behind several matters. That said, a mantra transcending imagination? Keep annihilation in mind. I mull over the heavenly venerable of the underworld's warning again. If the being that entered the audience chamber countless times and always returned alive is referring to a mantra transcending imagination, just what could it be? Is there a different mantra other than the phenomena extinguishing mantra? If someone like Golden Shaking Bird told me to beware of a mantra transcending imagination, I'd have hung them upside down and beaten them instead. But the words were spoken by none other than the heavenly venerable of the underworld, known as the Oldest One. If a being who even witnessed the vast cold heavenly Lord says it transcends imagination, if a being who has accumulated immeasurable experience over endless years claims it transcends imagination, I swallow my saliva. At the time of the Wuji religious order's annihilation, seeing the Great Mountain Supreme Deity gently stroke the Salt Mountain after taking it from me alone made it clear there is something special about it. Of course, I didn't know that if consumed, it could fly straight to the outer sea. That Salt Mountain is an artifact that leads to Penglai Island. In that case, is Penglai Island located somewhere in the outer sea? When Guac AM and I properly forged our senior-junior brother bond last time in Penglai Island, was it just a split soul? Or does using the Salt Mountain only allow sending a part of the main body? In any case, that's not what's important. What's important is that the Great Mountain Supreme Deity Guac AM consumed the Salt Mountain made of salt crystals to silently fly, without a trace, towards Penglai Island, with their main body. If even the heavenly venerable of the underworld cannot observe the outer sea, does that mean the Radiance Hall also cannot observe the outer sea? And Guac AM? In the outer sea that no one can observe, are they preparing an immortal art that the heavenly venerable of the underworld described as a mantra that transcends imagination? My thoughts become complicated. It is while I am pondering over the warning given by the heavenly venerable of the underworld. Kururum. What? As I return my split soul to my main body and come to my senses, I notice thunderclouds swirling in the void. That is, Kururum. From within the thunderclouds, red lightning flashes. Then, a deafening roar shakes the entirety of the divine thunder realm. Kuwa. Kwong. The sound of thunder shakes the ground. The thunderclouds coalesce into a spherical form. In an instant, the thunderclouds vanish from the lower realm. He's risen to the plane of true immortality. This means I rise to the true immortal plane, and as expected, Golden Shaking Bird is witnessing the birth of a new domain of thunder and lightning in the true immortal realm. Kururum. As John Myung-hoon's great heavenly rain of the charged lightning veil transforms, it creates a strange world where lightning falls like rain. I look at that world and smile bitterly. Within John Myung-hoon's world, the thunderclouds seem to move endlessly, as if forming some shape. It is a face. The cherished faces from the golden divine heavenly thunder sect are etched into those thunderclouds. Pajajajijik. At the center of the thunderclouds, I see the face of Jin Sohei engraved. Kururum. As red lightning appears to cascade from Jin Sohei's face, a spirit, jinging, composed of lightning itself, seems to emerge beneath her visage. The lightning spirit, clad in fluttering immortal attire made of crimson lightning, is a man with red eyes who lets his long crimson hair of lightning flow down. The red-eyed man reaches out towards the face in the sky, but Jin Sohei's face dissipates like a fleeting cloud. Seeing this, he wears a bitter expression, pulls out a withered hand from his chest, and presses it tenderly to his lips. Kururum. In an instant, the lightning world compresses around the man and soon takes on the exact same form as him. Jean Myung-hoon has thus succeeded in fully embracing both life and death. What the? The acceptance of life and death that took me 3,000 years, he completes it in mere seconds. It's just when I stare at him, slightly dumbfounded. Jean Myung-hoon looks up at the sky of the true immortal realm and stares intently at one of the 10 thrones floating above it. Just then, Kwarurum, a colossal lightning spear, bright enough to illuminate the true immortal realm that is only darkness, strikes down where Jean Myung-hoon stands. This is the heavenly punishment supreme deity, Dugon, is personally delivering the true immortal advancement tribulation to Jean Myung-hoon. Just as I once bore the gaze of the great mountain supreme deity, Jean Myung-hoon now bears the overwhelming attention of the heavenly punishment supreme deity. A heavenly tribulation so fearsome that even an ordinary true immortal would melt entirely into a prophecy if struck by it. Kururum. But Jean Myung-hoon does not dissolve into nothingness under the heavenly punishment. Instead, he becomes a thundercloud. The crimson thundercloud, rippling with countless faces, seems to writhe before beginning to rotate. The rotating thundercloud consumes the heavenly tribulation entirely. Aawa. Kururum. Ha-aya. An instant that feels like an eternity. Jean Myung-hoon finally endures that moment and succeeds in devouring all of the heavenly tribulation. Kururum. After consuming every last bit of the tribulation, Jean Myung-hoon returns to his human form and reaches his hand toward the sky. Quack. Reaching out, he clenches his hand tightly as if grabbing hold of something. Perhaps he has chosen his path. I think I know what path he has chosen. Because Jean Myung-hoon's gaze is so firmly fixed on the throne of the heavenly punishment supreme deity. Oh no, master, you must not choose that path. Golden Shaking Bird cries out, as if aware of how unfathomable it is to walk the path of a seed owner. But Jean Myung-hoon shows no sign of listening. Soon, hazy vapor gathers around Jean Myung-hoon, enveloping him before dispersing. He has been granted a name by the naming supreme deity. With that, Jean Myung-hoon, bestowed even an immortal title by the naming supreme deity, successfully completes his advancement to true immortality. Jean Myung-hoon. Woo-woo. Revealing my presence in the true immortal realm, I send attraction force towards him in greeting. Movement in the true immortal realm is exceedingly difficult. One can move little by little, but it is almost impossible to escape being bound in place like a fixed star. Although I managed to move from the Sun and Moon heavenly domain to the bearing tree heavenly domain, my position in the true immortal realm itself has barely changed. All that changed is that the location in the lower realm I can descend to has shifted to the bearing tree heavenly domain. It is a very fascinating feeling. This is almost like, yes, it is similar to using one of those rectangular search magic artifacts on Earth, enjoying games within it. While the main body remains seated and unmoving in reality, my access to heavenly domains changes depending on the heavenly domain where I, or those who revere me, move within the lower planes. It's a feeling I haven't experienced in a very long time. Fascinating. I struggle to move within the true immortal realm, making my way toward Jean Myung-hoon. How far have I come close? Perhaps his consciousness domain is slightly smaller than mine, as Jean Myung-hoon finally spots me and flinches. Woo-woo. I laugh heartily as I approach Jean Myung-hoon and pat him on the shoulder. Congratulations on your advancement to true immortality, Jean Myung-hoon. Smack. Then, I get slapped across the face. Seo Eun-hyun, you crazy bastard. I almost died. Can't you be a bit more careful? It's been a long time since I last got slapped by Jean Myung-hoon, so I grab him and give him a little initiation ritual for his true immortal advancement. This bastard. Hitting someone like this just because you got slapped a little. It doesn't even hurt that much anymore, right? Well, that's true. Jean Myung-hoon, Gold Shaking Bird, and I briefly descended to the lower realm, gathering around a campfire in front of the small hut where Jean Myung-hoon had been staying, casually chatting. I, through the impermanence sword, Gold Shaking Bird, through Du Wa's body, and Jean Myung-hoon, by temporarily overlaying himself over his vestige to lower his plane, making this gathering possible. By the way, just how did you manage to accept life and death so quickly? It took me 3,000 years. I just followed my fate. By following it, life and death naturally fell into place. Don't you already know from when you advanced to true immortality? At John Myung-hoon's words, I clear my throat. Ahem. Sorry, but I don't exactly know what my fate is. Is that so? Why don't you take a good look at your fate sometime? John Myung-hoon says this while gazing up at the sky. Above us in the true immortal realm, John Myung-hoon's fate is shining. A fate entirely composed of red, a red fate. That red fate is now completely fused with John Myung-hoon's immortal body, becoming a part of him. John Myung-hoon did say before that he realized his fate. Apparently, what manifests as talent in the lower realm takes the form of fate, starting from the true immortal realm. In other words, while mortals in the lower realm live their lives shaped by their talents, starting from true immortals, the fate they are born with becomes their defining talent. And in that sense, then what in the world is my fate? I have no idea what my fate is. While John Myung-hoon's fate is red, mine is not visible at all. Damn it. I have to be able to see it to know whether I have a fate or not. Even after rising all the way to the true immortal realm, will I have to suffer from a lack of talent because I have no fate? I let out a sigh. Even Hong Fan, who's a centipede, knows what his fate is. Why on earth can I not even get a hint on mine? Someday, I'll have to consult Hong Fan and tell him I can't figure out what my fate is. With such trivial concerns in mind, I begin preparing to resurrect Hong Fan, Ham Jin, and Uy. Chapter 563, Earth Immortal 4. I need the earth and send it floating upward as I ask. Kugugugugu. The 3 lumps of soil I mold rise into the sky, absorbing the surrounding dust as they transform into stars. Those stars will now contain scenes of Hong Fan, Ham Jin, and Uy being resurrected. By the way, John Myung-hoon, what's your immortal title? Heaven-destroying one, Mirtanga. Among the immortal titles given by the naming supreme deity, I chose that one. Pretty good. Mine is Crystal Glass Being. It is at that moment when we exchange our names. Woo-woo. I sense some kind of connection forming between us. This is... As John Myung-hoon and I look at each other in confusion, Golden Shaking Bird clings to John Myung-hoon's arm and laughs gleefully as she explains. Hee master. The true immortal realm is originally a pitch-black and endlessly vast place. Because of this, it is extremely difficult for true immortals to encounter one another unless they descend to the lower realm. In the past, communication between true immortals required being at least a great net immortal or exchanging messages through immortal treasures in the lower realm. But ever since the naming supreme deity's enthronement, there has been a rumor that simply exchanging names allows true immortals to communicate with one another from anywhere in the true immortal realm. Oh, thanks for the explanation. You're welcome, Master. Thank you for your praise. I love you, Master. By the way, Seo Eun-hyun, you still haven't explained this one to me, have you? John Myung-hoon asks while glancing at Golden Shaking Bird clinging to his arm with the happiest expression in the world. That one is, I told you already. I am Master's wife from a past life. Looking at Golden Shaking Bird, who interrupts me with nonsense whenever I try to explain, I click my tongue. She's a fully matured thunder beast created by Yang Soo-jin by melting down his subordinate sect, the Lightning Bird Golden Shaking sect. She's at a level below true immortal. I don't know the details, but she seems to have deeply loved Yang Soo-jin. I met her in the Lightning Sacred Sea. I use heart language in the plane of soul to transmit this information to John Myung-hoon so that Golden Shaking Bird cannot hear. John Myung-hoon nods. Well, I got it. By the way, in this life, I already have a Tao companion. I can't accept you. That is fine, Master. You can just take me as a concubine. As long as I can stay by your side, that is my happiness. Golden Shaking Bird nestles into Yang Soo-jin's embrace and rubs her face against him as she speaks. John Myung-hoon clears his throat, seemingly uncomfortable. Well, let's set aside the topic of concubines for now. In any case, you clinging to me in human form like this is uncomfortable. I see. I apologize. Golden Shaking Bird made a mistake. I will change forms right away. Pat. Golden Shaking Bird immediately abandons her human form and shrinks using Du's body. She takes the form of a small hummingbird. The golden hummingbird perches on John Myung-hoon's shoulder and rubs her head against his cheek. Perhaps finding the hummingbird form less uncomfortable, John Myung-hoon's expression softens. Well, good. From now on, stay like this whenever you follow me. Yes, Master. If you ever wish for feet, just command me to take my human form again. What? Never mind. Got it. By the way, Seo Eun-hyun, Golden Shaking Bird. I've only recently become a true immortal, so I'm lacking in knowledge. I need you to teach me. At those words, Golden Shaking Bird flutters her wings excitedly and begins to explain. I will explain. First of all, Master, let me start with the realms of true immortals. The gloomy and sadistic side she showed when she was with me is nowhere to be seen. Instead, She explains knowledge regarding the true immortal realm to John Myung-hoon and me with a cheerful and happy expression. There is knowledge I heard from Yuo, along with completely new information. These are the realms of true immortals. Above them are governing immortals, who have seized their seats. Hold on. Then, what exactly are the path, Dao, and seats that you're referring to? To put it simply, you can think of them as laws. From the moment one becomes a true immortal, one rises by mastering the laws and acquiring the principles of the world. At the end of the process, synchronizing with the origin of the law makes one an immortal lord, and completely dominating it makes one a governing immortal. Golden Shaking Bird explains about the seats and the origin essence in a manner that closely aligns with what I heard from Yuo. There are countless laws in this world, but they all vary depending on interpretation. How one interprets a law becomes the key focus of a true immortal's cultivation. However, there are about 3 absolute laws that cannot be interpreted and must be accepted as they are. 3 absolute laws? At those words, John Myung-hoon flinches in surprise and speaks to Golden Shaking Bird. I think I know what they are. They are probably time, space, and the law of samsara, right? Seizing the seed of these 3 supreme laws to become a Tao sovereign must be what governing immortals are. I already know a bit about the 3 supreme laws. Golden Shaking Bird glances at me as if unsure of what he's talking about, and I shrug in response. Nope. What? What are time, space, and samsara? Space and time are fundamentally one and belong to the domain of the heavenly venerable of time. As for samsara, is that from the underworld? I'm not exactly sure what Master means, but in any case, the 3 absolute laws are fate, history, and something else. Perhaps in Master's homeland, such laws are. Enough. I just misunderstood for a moment, so don't dig into it so seriously. For some reason, John Myung-hoon's face flushes red, and he snaps irritably at us. Golden Shaking Bird, discouraged by his outburst, lowers her head and continues her explanation. And my apologies, Master. Anyway, the 3 absolute laws are fate, history, and something else. At her words, I grow curious and ask. There's something I find curious. When I asked the Reapers and those affiliated with the underworld, they said the absolutes were fate, history, and death. Why do you seem unsure about the third one? Is that what the underworld says? Honestly, I'm not sure. They say the 3 powers operate Mount Sumeru, but other than fate and history, no one properly knows the identity of the third one. The underworld says it is death, while Radiance Hall claims it is the first light. Meanwhile, the factions of the Source River insist that the third law does not exist. The words coming out of Golden Shaking Bird's mouth are quite peculiar. The underworld says death, Radiance Hall says the first light, and the Source River denies its existence entirely? Even among true immortals, opinions are divided. Rumor has it that Radiance Hall only promotes the theory of the first light to promote their faction, but even within their ranks, opinions differ on whether the third law truly exists or what it is. Some in Radiance Hall advocate the first light theory, while others agree it is death. I hum softly in response. Both the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord and Yuo had explained it as death, so I had always assumed that was the case. Is there something else? Golden Shaking Bird flutters her wings and continues her explanation. To be honest, it's not treated as particularly important. It's just that the underworld, Radiance Hall, and the Northern Heavenly Venerable all agree, saying, well, there seem to be 3 laws, so it's accepted as the norm. But in reality, while there are many heaven immortals aligned with fate and immortal beasts aligned with history, no true immortal aligned with the third law can be found no matter where one searches, so wouldn't searching for it be a futile endeavor? Well, that is true. I click my tongue and nod. However, John Myung-hoon doesn't seem to accept Golden Shaking Bird's words. Wait, what are you talking about, Seo Eun-hyun? Even in the lower realm, weren't there the Heaven Tribe, Earth Tribe, and Heart Tribe? Then, wouldn't the third law be something like martial arts? Regarding that, Master in his previous life managed to partially uncover it. Above Golden Shaking Bird's head, the shape of a taiji appears. The essence of the Heart Tribe's manifestation ultimately lies in their use of qi. The way those of the Heart Tribe accumulate qi is said to be a degraded version of the Heaven Tribe methods, while their movement techniques are said to be a degraded version of the Earth Tribe methods. And as for those of the Heart Tribe who reach the 6th stage of manifestation, they can only rise by mastering the methods of the Heaven and Earth Tribes. That's right. The idea of pure martial arts is, in the end, non-existent. Pure intent alone accomplishes nothing. When I attained entering heavens and wielded core formation level power with the formless sword, it was because I melted the gang sphere into the formless sword. Other Heart Tribe members may reach entering heavens directly from 5 energies converging to the origin, But that's only because they pour their own life force into their entering heavens, enabling them to produce core formation level power. The power of artificial souls used by Jang Ik, or the drawing forth of power in the realm of tribulating heavens taught by Taeyul John. In truth, all of it is simply drawing upon chi that exists somewhere in another dimension. The process of converting willpower in the plane of soul into chi through my formless sword or impermanent sword is essentially the same principle. It wasn't until I reached the realm of severing heaven that I realized this. Before, I even believed in the existence of pure soul power, but that, too, was just extracting chi or attraction force that exists somewhere in the world through a special method. With pure intent alone, nothing can be done. Intent merely sets the direction, enabling one to draw chi and attraction force through that direction. Pure martial arts, honestly, doesn't exist. Martial arts is simply the result of combining the powers of heaven and earth, and the heart is just a directional guide. That's why the claim that there exists nothing else beyond fate and history, or that no one can tell what the third is, I can understand it to some extent. Of course, understanding does not mean accepting it. The third law exists. Because, without a doubt, the domain of purity I felt was power from a domain separate from both fate and history. However, explaining the concept of purity to those who haven't trained in martial arts is impossible, so I merely said it that way to John Myung-hoon. Is that so? Well, I get it for now. In that case, John Myung-hoon asks another question to Golden Shaking Bird. One more question. I've reached the realm of Vestige Liberation Immortal. Then, how does one advance from Vestige Liberation Immortal to Upper Immortal? At those words, Golden Shaking Bird flutters above us and replies, "It's simple, Master. The realm formula for Vestige Liberation Immortal is the Radiance 10 Heavens, Gongming Shikan." As she continues explaining, a bitter smile forms on both my and John Myung-hoon's faces. Without using immortal treasures or any devotees, only by relying on one's own prophecy or immortal art, one must create 10 fixed stars in the lower realm. Then, when individuals from the lower realm use the light of those stars in their rituals, and all the light of the 10 stars is entirely consumed in the rituals of lower realm inhabitants, they are engraved upon Mount Sumeru as necessary existences. When this happens, one will gain a starting point by Mount Sumeru to move towards the realm of heaven upper immortal of the fate system or the realm of earth upper immortal of the history system. I see. Then, do you know anything about the heavenly tribulation for the upper immortal advancement? In response to John Myung-hoon's question, Golden Shaking Bird perches on his shoulder and speaks with a slightly concerned tone. Since I too know nothing about the upper immortal advancement heavenly tribulation, I listen carefully. Master remembers the heavenly tribulation for the quasi-immortal advancement, right? Being wrung dry by the world itself is the quasi-immortal advancement. Heavenly tribulation. Only the true immortal advancement replaces that with attracting a supreme deity's gaze. All of the immortal family's advancement tribulations follow the same pattern. It is about being wrung dry by the world. Therefore, the heavenly tribulation for the upper immortal advancement is as follows. As Golden Shaking Bird continues to speak, I feel a chill run down my entire body. The world wringing dry the light of the stars one created. That is the upper immortal advancement, heavenly tribulation. If one can endure, one advances to upper immortal as compensation for providing light to the world. But if one fails, their main body and their star of prophecy will be completely transformed into light and eaten by the radiance supreme deity. That is the heavenly tribulation for advancing to upper immortal. Hearing this, both John Myung-hoon and I stare at the campfire in silence. The campfire flickers, the night grows deeper, and among the 3 prophetic stars hovering in the sky, one shines first. It is the star that contains the scene of Hong Fan's resurrection. Chapter 564, Earth Immortal 5. Being eaten by the owner of light? Is that a metaphor? At John Myung-hoon's question, Golden Shaking Bird lands lightly in front of us and continues speaking in a slightly lower voice. It is literal. A vestige liberation immortal who fails their advancement ritual. In other words, one lacking sufficient light to extract is ultimately forced to replace the missing parts with their authority and their main body. In the process, the entire body of the vestige liberation immortal becomes light and scatters across the universe, and those scattered photons all return to the owner of light. In the end, failing the advancement ritual amounts to feeding the stomachs of the supreme deities. It is no different from being eaten. John Myung-hoon and I remained silent in the face of this unexpected and terrifying truth. After some time of brooding silence, I extinguish the campfire and distort the surrounding attraction force to block out all light. Then, I ask her a question. What exactly is the owner of light? What kind of being wields such terrifying authority? Why in the world does the radiant supreme deity have the authority to devour true immortals? At my words, Golden Shaking Bird looks up at the sky for a moment before responding. There seems to be a misunderstanding. This is not a problem with the Radiant Supreme Deity. What? Governing immortals? No. All seats in this world ultimately represent realms of immortal cultivation. Or perhaps, portions of a realm, or the process of immortal cultivation itself. She continues her explanation calmly, as though she is recounting a story she once heard from someone else. The person who told her this story is obvious. Behind Golden Shaking Bird, John Myung-hoon, and I feel as though Yang Soo-jin himself is narrating this to us. We all walk the path of immortal cultivation, but stop at some realm along the way and are buried there. Eventually, we rot and decay, becoming the nutrients of the world once again, providing the foundation for future generations to continue on the path. Being eaten is simply decaying on the path of immortal cultivation and becoming its foundation. And the governing immortals have become the very path of immortal cultivation itself. Therefore, dying within the realms overseen by the governing immortals simply makes one their daily sustenance. So what you're saying is, I recall the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord. The Radiance 8 Immortals are said to oversee the realms of Chi Refining 4th Star and the Vestige Liberation Immortal, which means, aside from the Radiance Supreme Deity, what are the other realms overseen by the governing immortals? At my question, Golden Shaking Bird flutters into the air and uses golden lightning to write words in the void. The realms overseen by the governing immortals are as follows. Chi Refining 3rd Star, Eastern Heavenly Venerable Flower Monarch, Great Mountain Supreme Deity. Chi Refining 4th Star, Radiance Supreme Deity. Chi Refining 6th Star, Liberation Supreme Deity. Chi Refining 7th Star, Southern Heavenly Venerable True Ultimate Eternal Life, Great Emperor. Chi Refining 14th Star and 4-Axis Advancement Ritual, Great Mountain Supreme Deity. 4-Axis Stage, Great Mountain Supreme Deity. Integration Stage, Swallowing Heaven Supreme Deity. Sacred Vessel Stage, Liberation Supreme Deity. Entering Nirvana and True Immortal Advancement Ritual, Western Heavenly Venerable Netherworld Ghost Mother. Immediately after True Immortal Advancement, Naming Supreme Deity. Vestige Liberation Immortal, Radiance Supreme Deity. Heaven and Earth Upper Immortal, Great Mountain Supreme Deity. Great Net Immortal, True Martial Great Emperor, True Ultimate Eternal Life Great Emperor, and Flower Monarch, the 3 Heavenly Venerables. Immortal Lord, Radiance Supreme Deity, Emptiness Supreme Deity. These are the realms overseen and controlled by each governing immortal. As I observe the immortal cultivation systems dominated by the governing immortals, I let out a low sigh. John Myung-hoon glances at me before asking a question. Does the Heavenly Punishment Supreme Deity not have a cultivation system they control? The Heavenly Punishment Supreme Deity oversees all advancement rituals. And the Naming Supreme Deity, although it seems like they only oversee the very narrow space of immediately after true immortal advancement, the establishment of cultivation formulas for each realm falls under their domain. What? Startled, I ask. The cultivation formulas for each realm are created by the Naming Supreme Deity? Exactly. Wait, that means cultivation formulas are unnecessary for the Earth tribe. This is because their formulas are essentially nothing more than refining the instinct and wild nature engraved into their bloodlines. Thus, those who rely on cultivation formulas are. Does that mean the Naming Supreme Deity is involved in the birth of the Heaven tribe? Only the Heaven tribe. Golden Shaking Bird shakes her head. That is not the case. Haha, of course. All of the Heaven tribe are essentially extensions of the Naming Supreme Deity. Until they become Vestige Liberation Immortals and transcend their birth nature, the authority to oversee celestial energy for mortal beings belongs solely to the Naming Supreme Deity. In a way, you could even say that the Naming Supreme Deity governs the Chi Refining 7th Star as well. Isn't that interesting? The Naming Supreme Deity was once a human who, in the age before Heaven tribe cultivation methods existed, reached the pinnacle of the Earth tribe and became the immortal Beast King. And yet, this same deity is most directly involved in the creation of the Heaven tribe. Naming Supreme Deity. For some reason, I feel like the Naming Supreme Deity holds more hidden secrets than other dangerous governing immortals like the Radiant Supreme Deity, the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld, or the Great Mountain Supreme Deity. In any case, all Supreme Deities and Heavenly Venerables control the entire immortal cultivation system. And failing advancement within a system overseen by a governing immortal is essentially the same as being eaten by them. That sounds familiar. Ahaha, there certainly exists a saying like that between the star-shattering stage and entering Nirvana stage. Something about being devoured by the heavenly domain. My eyes gleam. The heavenly domain, or in other words, the astral realm as it's commonly called, belongs to the supreme deities? That's correct. More precisely, the entire heavenly domain, including the astral realm, belongs to the supreme deities. Every heavenly domain has an owner who governs it, and each time a supreme deity is born, a new heavenly domain is inevitably created. I see. Through Golden Shaking Bird, I managed to resolve many questions about the current immortal cultivation system in this world. Golden Shaking Bird flutters upward and perches on John Myonghun's shoulder, continuing her explanation. In the end, all beings who set foot on the path of immortal cultivation are fated to either be devoured or to devour others. My master described it humorously as all things of all phenomena are pills. Isn't it such an amusing joke? Perhaps all cultivators are fated to be consumed by the very system of immortal cultivation itself. John Myonghun clears his throat and asks a question. By the way, this makes me a little curious. If there is one supreme deity per heavenly domain, doesn't that mean there are currently 10 governing immortals? Not 10 existences, Strichen, but 11 existences, Ethan. They are also referred to as the 11 governings. Hearing this, John Myonghun asks suspiciously, "What are you talking about?" After advancing to true immortality and seeing the supreme deities in the sky, there were clearly only 10. I, too, find this puzzling. 11 governings. Why are there 11? During my true immortal advancement, and even during my regression, there were clearly only 10 seats. Unexpectedly, Golden Shaking Bird scratches her head with her wings before lowering it. I apologize. I am not entirely sure about that either. However, Radiance Hall claims it to be 11 governings. All the allied factions of Radiance Hall accept this claim as well. While the Underworld or the Great Mountain Supreme Deity may not agree with it, they don't particularly refute it either. For now, the only faction making this claim is undoubtedly Radiance Hall. Radiance Hall is practically the entirety of this world. Hasn't the Golden Divine whispered anything to you? I question Golden Shaking Bird, and she places her 2 wings on her waist, glaring at me as she speaks. More importantly, why does Elder keep calling my master Golden Divine this, Golden Divine that, and Yang Sujin this, and Yang Sujin that? Is my master your friend? It's infuriating to hear someone as young as you refuse to address my master with proper honorifics. Bringing up age in front of me. Even assuming Yang Sujin is still alive, the combined ages of Yang Sujin and Golden Shaking Bird would barely exceed half of mine. What nonsense is she spouting at me? Just as I'm about to smack Golden Shaking Bird with the impermanence sword, John Myonghun lightly taps Golden Shaking Bird on the head and says, Seo Eun-hyun is my friend and is also from the Golden Divine's homeland. Moreover, there's a time discrepancy between our homeland and Mount Samaru. So, in terms of time, the age difference is only about 500 years at most. That's close enough to be an older-younger brother relationship, so don't fuss about it. Yes, master. I apologize. I did not realize the age gap was less than 500 years. It is Golden Shaking Bird's fault. As an apology, if he wishes, I will let Seo Eun-hyun lick my feet. Alright, just answer Seo Eun-hyun's question. Did Yang Sujin whisper anything to you? At John Myonghun's words, Golden Shaking Bird seems to recall an old memory before responding. My master once spoke about the reason why the number of visible thrones in the sky and the number of thrones claimed by Radiance Hall differ. He said, it's a truth that is both absurdly laughable and chilling. A truth that is both laughable and chilling. Something about that doesn't seem to add up. Can something laughable and chilling coexist in a single sentence? What a bizarre expression. Just what does it mean? When I asked what my master meant, he massaged my feet while saying, if you're very quick, you'll learn after reaching Great Net Immortal. If you're slower, you'll learn after becoming an Immortal Lord or a Governing Immortal. He also said, once you realize this, you'll understand why light rules the world. However, he warned me not to try uncovering the truth from any realm below Upper Immortal, as light would immediately notice and it would be dangerous. Information that light will notice? I sense that this trust must be tied to some enormous truth of Mount Samaru. Light is wisdom. Therefore, if one tries to perceive or uncover something, it immediately notices. Right. Yang Sujin said the truth will naturally become clear as I advance in cultivation. So, I shouldn't delve into this for now. This is dangerous, no matter how I look at it. As I contemplate this truth, John Myonghun raises another question. Here's the next question. Governing immortals are known as the owners of heavenly domains or of dimensions overlapping those domains. Following up on the previous question, if there are 4 heavenly venerables and 7 supreme deities, then shouldn't there be 7 heavenly domains? That's right. Something about the number of heavenly domains doesn't add up. Sun and Moon, Heavenly King, Twin Holding, Earth Axis, Bearing Tree, Good Sight, Horse Ear, Elephant Nose, Earth Boundary. According to the wisdom I received from Blood Een, Mount Samaru's heavenly domains total 9. Why are there 2 extra heavenly domains? At John Myung-hoon's observation, Golden Shaking Bird scratches her head again with her wings before responding. Golden Shaking Bird does not know for sure. As for the Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain and the Horse Ear Heavenly Domain, their original owner, the Heavenly Punishment Supreme Deity, was imprisoned by Radiance Hall, leading to the current state. The Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain's owner became the Radiance Supreme Deity, and Horse Ear Heavenly Domain was created specifically to imprison the Heavenly Punishment Supreme Deity. So, I can understand the existence of 8 heavenly domains, but where the last one came from, or who created it, Golden Shaking Bird does not know that either. I apologize. No, it's fine. Let's figure that out gradually. Yes, thank you. Thus concludes Golden Shaking Bird's basic knowledge lecture for John Myung-hoon. Wawoom. Clang. And just as the lecture ends, Hong Fan succeeds in his resurrection from the pitch-black darkness devoid of any light. Ho, have you been well, Master? Oh, Hong Fan, you finally resurrected? How is the underworld? It's still running well as usual. However, I couldn't enter the depths of the underworld. I'm a bit regretful about that. Haha, you and your jokes. What would I do if you entered the depths of the underworld and ended up reincarnating? Haha, even if I reincarnate, I will find my way back to you, Master, so don't worry. With that, I share a conversation with the newly resurrected Hong Fan as we welcome the morning sunlight that enters the divine thunder realm. The next day arrives. John Myung-hoon gathered the necessary items he used for cultivating immortal arts from the hut. Meanwhile, I temporarily sealed the minds of Ham Jin and Yu that are still affected by death energy as they just recently resurrected. Now that John Myung-hoon has completed his true immortal advancement, and since there's no more business left in the divine thunder realm, it is time to move on to the astral realm and begin my cultivation as a Vestige Liberation Immortal. Ever since realizing that Vestige Liberation Immortal falls under the domain of the Radiance Supreme Deity, I've wanted to escape this realm as soon as possible. By the way, was it you who killed the Sacred Master of the Divine Thunder Realm? Oh yeah, it was a devotee of light. As soon as it saw me, it started going on about reporting me to Radiance Hall, so I blessed it with the immortal art, Red Lightning Heavenly Tribulation. Blessing? Lightning Sacred Body, I mean. Its entire body underwent lightning transformation, becoming a spirit of lightning. Pajajajijik. John Myung-hoon smirks as he pulls something out from the void. It is a guzheng, which burns a bright red. Editor. A guzheng is a type of plucked zither, an ancient Chinese string instrument. I tore it from their middle realm Sacred Master position and refined it into an immortal treasure. John Myung-hoon smirks as he taps the guzheng lightly. The guzheng's form distorts as if trying to escape from John Myung-hoon's grasp with all its strength. But John Myung-hoon grips the neck of the guzheng tightly, applying enough force to almost snap it, forcing it into submission. Watching this violent display, I ask, did it insult you or something? You seem to be treating it rather harshly. Yeah, the bastard insulted Sohei, calling her a shriveled hand, or saying, it looks crispy and tasty, give me a bite. Originally, I was just going to seal it after teaching it a lesson, but after hearing that insult, I lost my temper and decided to refine it into an immortal treasure. Before I can say anything, Golden Shaking Bird's eyes flip over in anger. Master, are you saying you were insulted? What happened to this Sacred Master's kin and race? I just left them alone. They didn't witness our battle anyway, so they won't be able to report anything to Radiance Hall. That's, Master. Isn't it only natural to exterminate the Sacred Master's race? To think it dared to insult Master. Please give the order. I will exterminate the Sacred Master's race, and through a blood sacrifice in the Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain for Master's convenience, descend Master's main body. There's no need to go that far. Capturing this bastard is enough for me. Even though it's not about destroying the entire Divine Thunder Realm, but only exterminating its race. Then Master, at the very least, let me capture the Sacred Master's family or descendants for you. At Golden Shaking Bird's request, John Myung-hoon shakes his head and says, didn't I say there's no need for that? This is an order. Don't make a fuss about this matter again. Understood. However, I believe this sacred vessel bastard that insulted Master has been insufficiently refined. May I add a special refinement process? I will refine it further to ensure it can neither resist nor escape from Master. Well, since it insulted Sohei, that's fair. Good. Assist with the refinement. At those words, Golden Shaking Bird takes the guzheng from John Myung-hoon, absorbs it into her body, and begins refining it. Now then, shall we move on to the astral realm? With that, we depart from the Divine Thunder Realm. Twin constructing chains. Fly. Hui. Transforming Y into the form of a Peng, I mount her back along with everyone and traverse the interdimensional void. Hui. As we speed through the interdimensional void, I suddenly notice that the 48 middle realms are arranged in a specific pattern. That's Starting from the Myriad Laws realm, countless realms extend outward. These middle realms seem to draw a massive shape. The shape begins at the Myriad Laws realm, passes through the Divine Thunder realm, and ends at a realm called the Feeling Life realm. Beside the Feeling Life realm, the Myriad Laws realm appears again. The middle realms draw a circle, and that circle is not merely a simple round shape, but rather some kind of diagram. Golden Shaking Bird furrows her brow as she gazes down at the 48 middle realms drifting in the interdimensional void. No matter how many times I see it, what a distasteful hobby. Those Radiance Hall bastards. The middle realms scattered in the shape of a circle seem to embody a certain symbol. That symbol takes the form of the snake biting its tail. It is the emblem of Radiance Hall. Radiance Hall is notorious for engraving the form of snake biting its tail onto the remains of those who opposed them, or onto what their enemies cherished. Alternatively, they impose a fate related to that symbol, forcing it to take on this form. John Myung-hoon clicks his tongue and grimaces. To the dead, this is going too far. Yeoi, as though trying to avoid looking directly at the symbol below, clenches her eyes shut while breaking into cold sweat. Meanwhile, I silently offer a small gesture of mourning for the former subordinates of the Heavenly Punishment Supreme Deity as I watch their pitiful state. Hong Fan, either uninterested or unable to perceive the arrangement of the middle realms due to being in the integration stage, remains indifferent. With an emotionless expression, he pulls out garbage and food scraps from his storage scroll and tosses them toward the middle realms, seemingly cleaning out his bag. Golden Shaking Bird averts her gaze from the grotesque scene and, perhaps to shift the mood, begins to chatter. Because of her quick chatter, I, too, forgot a little of the horror of that tragedy and join in on the conversation. By the way, aside from the Vestige Liberation Immortal Cultivation, we need to find our other comrades. We'll have to pass through the astral realm to reach other heavenly domains anyway, so heading to the astral realm for now makes sense. That said, do you know which heavenly domains the others went to? For now. By the way, Master, you still have the vestige, right? If Master hands it to me, I will make it into a storage scroll. After reaching the true immortal rank, most people make their storage scrolls from their vestiges. Haha, Master, my storage scroll has been invaded by bugs. Because its functionality is so good that even living things can enter without restriction, bugs seem to have come in. I am starting to worry since the number of bugs has increased a lot. With that, we cross beyond the interdimensional void and arrive at the astral realm within the Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain to reunite with our other comrades and quickly proceed with our Vestige Liberation Immortal Cultivation. Now then, let's discuss methods to figure out the current situation of our comrades and plan our next steps in more detail. I rise from my seat, preparing to adjust our plans moving forward. And then, kajigajig, clank. In an instant, the movement of the universe halts. A pure white light flashes, seemingly toying with the workings of the universe and rendering time itself a fool. Within the pure white light, we behold a blindingly beautiful bird. I am the immortal beast, Glass Peacock. As the words of the bird continue, Golden Shaking Bird screams in horror. Unfamiliar new faces, and that brute's attendant concubine. How splendid. I'll have to mate. Run away, ye. Twin constructing chains. If you don't want to be violated by Glass Peacock, flap your wings like mad. The moment Yeoi hears the name, Glass Peacock, it's as though her mind, broken by Golden Shaking Bird, is restored. Frothing at the mouth, she begins flapping her wings like crazy. On our first day in the astral realm of the Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain. Halt. I shall show you paradise. We encounter the infamous Earth Immortal of reproduction and mating, Glass Peacock. History revision. Escape routes lost. To capture and violate us. Glass Peacock begins to unleash their power. Chapter 565, Earth Immortal 6. Chapter 565, Earth Immortal 6. Seeing. Escape routes lost. Escape routes lost. Escape routes lost. The voice of Glass Peacock resonates as if echoing through countless galaxies. At the same time, Golden Shaking Bird cries out in panic. History revision. Quickly, hurry up and make a prophecy. Put the star of prophecy into my stomach and make a prophecy. For the time being, I'll offer part of my immortal body to Master. Wawoom. Golden Shaking Bird transforms into a human form and places her hand on her chest. Quadaduk. She then uses Duwa's body as a medium to extract a portion of her main body from the true immortal realm and hands it over to John Myung-hoon. It throbs like a beating heart, and it appears to be an immense sacrifice for Golden Shaking Bird, as her face disappears entirely. The face of Duwa's physical body melts away and disappears completely. Meanwhile, Golden Shaking Bird's main body in the true immortal realm convulses madly in pain. Golden Shaking Bird. Q quick. Hurry. John Myung-hoon looks at Golden Shaking Bird, grits his teeth, and accepts the piece of her immortal body that she handed over, absorbing it directly. Sururuk. The portion of the golden shaking bird's immortal body enters John Myung-hoon's mouth, and he immediately opens his mouth to speak. In the name of this immortal, I prophesize. A small sphere manifests above John Myung-hoon's hand. The sphere begins to absorb surrounding dust, gradually grows larger, and begins to project a scene. By riding the interstellar wind, we shall escape from Glass Peacock. The faceless golden shaking bird embraces the star created by John Myung-hoon and stores it within her body. I, too, utter a prophecy. Zing. A sharp pain spreads through my chest, radiating throughout my entire body. In the name of this immortal, I prophesize. All pursuers in this galaxy will, at minimum, lose their targets at least once. When using prophecy, there is always a limit to its scope. If the range of the prophecy is too broad, it will shatter before it can affect the entire scope, or it may become invalid. When that happens, the star of prophecy collapses, and the one who uttered the prophecy suffers immense backlash. Thus, when using a prophecy on a particular target, it's crucial to define the target precisely and attach specific conditions to increase the success rate. However, there are instances when exceptions occur. When a single being possesses an overwhelming influence and presence that surpasses an entire multitude. Glass Peacock. Their presence and authority exceeds that of every living being in this galaxy combined. In such cases, it is far more effective to direct the prophecy not at the individual, but at the fate tied to the entire galaxy. Rather than making a prophecy involving a single Glass Peacock, it is far less likely to fail to make a prophecy that loosely applies to the galaxy where Glass Peacock currently resides. When prophesying about a being with greater presence than myself, the prophecy must target not the being but the places or objects associated with them. This is one of the pieces of wisdom imparted by Bloodine. Bearing the pain, I create a prophetic star and hand it to Golden Shaking Bird. She accepts it, stores it within her body, and then makes her own prophecy, sealing the stars within her so that no other being can interfere. Now, go, Yin Yang. I slap her back, turning away from the pursuer and looking towards the distant universe. Kugugugugu. Thus, we manage to escape from Yi-O-Y by riding on Glass Peacock. Glass Peacock soars upon the interstellar wind, and Yi-O-Y, bound by the prophecy that pursuers would lose track of their targets at least once, fails to pursue us. From afar, all she can manage to do is struggle desperately to follow us. It seems as though Yi-O-Y is screaming something, but Glass Peacock, riding the interstellar wind, moves so fast that even the mentally speech of someone at the sacred vessel stage like Yi-O-Y is barely audible. Why though? I suddenly feel a strange sense of unease. The expression on Yi-O-Y's face when she lost track of us earlier. It was unmistakably a face filled with terror, as if she had witnessed something incomprehensible. Something is strange. What could possibly frighten Yi-O-Y, who is supported by an unfathomable true immortal? Was losing us truly that unbearable? I turned to Golden Shaking Bird. That was a close call. To encounter someone like that the moment we arrived in Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain. By the way, why is your face gone? Gee, Golden Shaking Bird's face is gradually reappearing. No matter how much I wear the shell of a demon beast, the essence of a true immortal is formless. As such, when subjected to great pain, even the concept of a face is erased. Is that so? But why specifically the face? At my question, Glass Peacock responds. Because the face is essential for communication. Communication? What do you mean? We have no need for forms. Yet, we assume them nonetheless because it makes communicating with others much easier. Don't certain beings in the lower realm, when subjected to immense shock or pain, lose the ability to speak? Similarly, the faces or forms of true immortals temporarily return to formlessness under great pain, rendering communication impossible. Communication, can it be done with just the will? It would be ideal if it could, but not even true immortals can achieve that with ordinary willpower. Taking on a form and communicating is the proper way to fully harness the aid of light and to properly walk one's Tao. Do you know why Golden Shaking Bird tore off a piece of her immortal body to give to him? Yeah, Bloodine taught me. Or rather, he infused the wisdom into me. Manipulating fate requires a price. To guide fate as one desires, one must possess the corresponding amount of fortune, blessing. Since from true immortals onwards, one's fate is their talent, the fortune one is born with sets the basic limit for how many prophecies they can utter. While advancing one's realm may allow them to exceed these basic limits, every true immortal has an inherent cap on their prophetic ability. Upon reaching the Earth Axis stage, one learns that the concept of extremity signifies a state of being without blessings. Every true immortal who overuses prophecy beyond their limits eventually falls into extremity, rendering them incapable of affecting any fate. But there's a way to replenish it. a remarkably simple method, and that is to steal. By interfering with the fate of mortal beings and seizing the good fortune that resides within their fates, one can absorb it into their own fate. Doing so might cause those mortal beings to live harder, more unfortunate lives, but it grants the true immortal another opportunity to make a prophecy. Of course, this exchange of fortune isn't limited to true immortals and mortal beings. It is also possible between true immortals themselves. Golden Shaking Bird likely tore off a piece of her fortune from her immortal body because she didn't want John Myung-hoon to recklessly deplete the fortune he was born with. Her loyalty runs deep. That pain caused her to temporarily lose her face, no? You understand well. Did you say this wisdom came from Bloodine? Yeah. Before my true immortal advancement, he infused me with wisdom, urging me to oppose the snakes. It contained the basics of prophecy and general knowledge about true immortals. How petty. He gave you plenty of teachings to oppose Radiance Hall, where heaven immortals are abundant, yet not a single precaution against the underworld that is teeming with earth immortals. Isn't that why you are completely unprepared against history revision? It is certainly true. Perhaps he taught me that way so the underworld would find it easier to suppress me if I ever clashed with them. It seems to have been Blood Yin's form of loyalty in his own way. Well, I can't really blame him for that. Anyway, I turn around to see if Yeo Y is following, then ask Glass Peacock. There doesn't seem to be any pursuit. How far are we going? We are heading to a place where neither other true immortals, the Netherworld, nor the Radiance Hall can interfere. Once there, no one else will be able to reach us. I see. So it's to ensure that Yeo Y can't find us. Glass Peacock only flies forward with a silent smile. I nod, calming the pain in my chest. That works too. For now, let's go there and rest until this chest pain subsides. After that, we will assess the situation and see if Yeo Y is pursuing us. Do not worry. I can suppress that Yeo Y as well. After dropping you off in a safe zone and sealing it so no one can intrude, I will go capture Yeo Y. How reliable. I'll leave it to you, Glass Peacock. By the way, what do you mean by chest pain? Do you know something about it? I explain my chest pain to Glass Peacock. The faint pain in my chest that always appears when I use prophecies. After listening to my explanation, Glass Peacock briefly laughs as if in disbelief. A madman. That's truly the epitome of salt. Well, good. It gives me something to savor. Huh? What do you mean? Savor what? It's nothing. I'll do something nice, so don't worry. I'll make sure you don't even think about the pain. I'll be very grateful. I express my gratitude to Glass Peacock as we enter one of the black holes located in the far reaches of the astral realm. Kajigajik. Glass Peacock seems to manipulate the interior of the black hole momentarily with the power of light, creating a small dimensional space inside. Then, they set us down in that space. No one will be able to contact or find you here. It's extremely difficult to locate this place from the outside, so it's a safe zone. Wait here briefly. I will seal this place and then go capture that one. All right, I'm counting on you, Glass Peacock. Also, the planes are slightly distorted here, so even if you don't have immortal treasures or incarnations, you can manifest your true body. Open up your true selves completely and be ready to accept me the moment I return. Why would we need to do that? What do you mean, why? Wasn't I originally within you? That's true. I recall the memory of refining Glass Peacock alongside Golden Shaking Bird. It's only natural for Glass Peacock to enter either my body or Golden Shaking Bird's body. I'll also enter that one's body, so be prepared. Even John Myung-hoon's? Well, you worked hard, so I suppose I'll let you enter him for a while. Indeed. All of you, open yourselves fully and wait for me. With that, Glass Peacock leaves us inside the dimensional space within the black hole. They seal the black hole with a powerful barrier and star vein formation, ensuring no one can interfere, before flying off to capture Yeo Y. Horroruk, Pajajijik, Golden Shaking Bird, John Myung-hoon, and I obediently reveal our main bodies, opening the worlds inside us to allow Glass Peacock to become one with us when they return. And that's when it happens. Chijijijik. Court. I clutch my head as an intense headache pounds my skull. This is. The canvas of myriad forms and connections is writhing madly. Why is this happening? Is there something strange going on? It's not just the canvas of myriad forms and connections. Something else is also making my headache. I think deeply amidst the pain. If the canvas of myriad forms and connections is trembling, it means something about the current situation is abnormal. What's wrong? Have I been affected by some authority related to history? As I sense that something is amiss, I quickly lay out my memories in sequence and compare them to the canvas of myriad forms and connections. Zing. Certain memories cause excruciating pain when they touch the canvas of myriad forms and connections, while others show no response. I see. The memories that are intact are the normal ones. They haven't undergone distortion. All the memories from before my regression, specifically before my true immortal advancement, are completely intact. They haven't been distorted, but the ones that aren't are. Zing. The cedarwood painting, EOY. That's it. Something is wrong. All the memories from when I went to cedarwood painting after advancing to true immortality and met EOY are the ones causing pain through the canvas of myriad forms and connections. Let's retrace those memories. I try to use the canvas of myriad forms and connections to verify the truth, but for some reason, it doesn't function properly. Even for me, its master, there are parts that appear hazy. I met EOY at cedarwood painting, and at that time, I happened to meet the immortal beast Glass Peacock, who came looking for EOY. Glass Peacock introduced themselves as one of EOY's patrons and said they would follow EOY since they were supporting her. At that time, Glass Peacock was in a split soul state, and they even helped me when EOY rebelled against me. Later, in order to use the lightning sacred sea's great desolate path in the split soul state, Glass Peacock followed Golden Shaking Bird's proposal. Mixed with the immortal treasure EOY was being refined into and temporarily entered my body, synchronizing with me. They continued to stay with us even after crossing over to the Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain, and when we attempted to travel from the Divine Thunder Realm to the Astral Realm. The issue arose after that. At some point, EOY started saying it was difficult to fly, so Glass Peacock swapped and carried us for a while. Then, while traveling through the interdimensional void towards the Astral Realm, EOY's gaze seemed to have met something in one of the middle realms within the Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain void. Afterward, EOY began undergoing a strange erosion, seemingly chasing us to use us for some kind of resurrection ritual of a certain true immortal. It must be one of the subordinates of the Heavenly Punishment Supreme Deity, whose prophecy has not yet ended. That subordinate likely eroded EOY, causing her to chase us, and we fled on Glass Peacock. Looking at it this far, nothing seems strange. So why is the canvas of myriad forms and connections reacting so strangely? I clutch my head, deep in thought. And it's not just the canvas of myriad forms and connections. Something else is also tearing through my mind. What is this? It is an uncanny pain. This pain, it feels somehow familiar. Haven't I experienced this kind of pain before? This pain. I ponder for a while. What is this strange sense of discord? I met EOY and Glass Peacock at cedarwood painting, entrusted Golden Shaking Bird with the refinement, entered the head realm, and met Zhang Ai. Wait, the head realm. Head realm. I snap my eyes wide open. While the canvas of myriad forms and connections causes rejection and pain in all memories after cedarwood painting, the memories of what happened in the head realm do not cause pain, and the canvas operates normally. The head realm. There's something in the head realm. Something that holds a clue to solving this situation. The head realm. Head realm. Suddenly, I recall that moment. The time in the head realm when I reached the 8th star of the Chi refining stage and partially broke free from the restrictions of the Northern Dipper Sealing Immortal flag. Back then, I momentarily entered a state of unity of the self and external word, and saw the head realm's sun and moon. Sun and moon. At that time, Zi Frying. Kwa. I scream as I finally realize the identity of the something else, tearing through my mind alongside the canvas of myriad forms and connections. The memory of the sun and moon resonates with that something, dispelling the fog from my mind. The something causing pain alongside the canvas of myriad forms and connections is formless poison. Kwa. I scream from the pain inflicted by the formless poison, clutching my head while laughing. Ha. As my mind clears, the contents hidden within the canvas of myriad forms and connections are revealed. I met Glass Peacock in the Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain. For the first time, escape routes lost, I see. It wasn't a path. Losing the very reason to escape itself. That was Glass Peacock's history revision. Chapter 566, Earth Immortal 7. Chapter 566, Earth Immortal 7. Hong Fan. Yes, Master. I am here. I just regained clarity while resonating with Master. How terrifying. Good. That's a relief. It felt similar to when I was trapped in that dream inside the salt pillar. It seems that Hong Fan's formless poison is helpful for breaking dreams. Tell me the principle behind the formless poison. We need to wake John Myung-hoon and Golden Shaking Bird so they can come to their senses. Feeling an overwhelming sense of crisis, I draw the impermanent sword and turn towards Golden Shaking Bird and John Myung-hoon, who are blankly exposing their true selves and reforming their bodies to make it easier to unite with Glass Peacock. If they stay like this, they'll be violated by Glass Peacock. Quickly. First, pain. Pain is required. My formless poison condenses chi into an information entity, which is then injected into the target to drive their information towards destruction. However, at the same time, It uses information to discern truth and falsehood, forcibly awakening the target. And the most effective type of information to create the formless poison is the information of pain. If Master gives me the energy of pain, I will use that pain to create the formless poison and awaken the two of them. Chijijijik. The impermanence sword darkens, turning pitch black. Impermanence sword. Black impermanence, Hui Wuchang. The blackened sword morphs into a shadow resembling me, standing before Hong Fan. Hong Fan extends his hand towards it, quickly collecting my pain and refining it into formless poison. Even though he must feel a portion of my pain in the process, Hong Fan grits his teeth and endures, refining the formless poison and injecting it into John Myung-hoon's head. Before long, John Myung-hoon begins to shed tears of blood. KK Kwa Wao. Calf. Ha Heek. Hiyak. Calm yourself, John Myung-hoon. Think carefully. The first time you met Glass Peacock is when? 3,000 years ago, during Blood Yin's self-destruction. They cared for me in the Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain. Recall it clearly, while making sure attraction force doesn't form between John Myung-hoon even when calling out their name. I urge John Myung-hoon to focus. Finally, John Myung-hoon is startled in fright. Hio Hiyak. This crazy. Jay, just now what were we hit with? It seems that thing temporarily caused us to lose the reason to escape. I don't know the full details, but let's wake Golden Shaking Bird for now. Hong Fan and I infuse the formless poison into Golden Shaking Bird to wake her up. Golden Shaking Bird, overwhelmed by my immense pain used as the raw material for the formless poison, regains her senses amidst unbearable agony. Hihuk Kwa Wao. But perhaps because John Myung-hoon is watching, she suppresses her outburst and gasps for breath. Ha Hiyak. Heek. Are you alright, Golden Shaking Bird? Damn it. We've been captured by Glass Peacock. After seizing twin constructing chains, Glass Peacock will come back to violate us. John Myung-hoon seems to ponder something before asking. Wait, violate us? Is that thing a man? For true immortals, gender holds no meaning, Master. Then can't I just ask them to take a form that suits my preferences? Judging by their talk of showing us paradise, it doesn't seem like they would torture us, or anything. Haha, Golden Divine. The previous master once approached that lunatic with the same thought, thinking that as long they cater to his preferred form, he'd only experience pleasure. But even Master couldn't last 3 days before fleeing. Glass Peacock was the only one who made Master run from someone weaker than him. Jay, just what did they do? At least 6,000 years. Golden Shaking Bird, her face darkened, trembles in terror as she speaks. For at least 6,000 years, we will be violated by Glass Peacock without being able to rest for even one shurchen. That's the kind of existence they are. Since we are practically prisoners, whether as a male or female, whether as same-sex, whether as a monstrous form or the form of true immortal, they will violate us with no consideration. Because we are in a situation where ignoring our demands does not affect them. Glass Peacock's dual cultivation sessions are long. The minimum is 6,000 years, the average is 70,000 years. And the record is with a seat holder of the same immortal path, the former immortal lord, Azure Pong. During their great net immortal era, they violated Azure Pong for 20 million years, ultimately seizing the seat. After taking the seat, they continued for another 5.04 million years. Stop. That's enough. John Myung-hoon and I sigh, cutting off Golden Shaking Bird's explanation. A lunatic immortal lord who endlessly alters their form and violates their opponents for tens of thousands of years regardless of gender, species, or rank. Is that the Glass Peacock? What a crazy bastard. To be honest, I feel a fear as intense as when I was fleeing and committed suicide to avoid being modified by the Mad Lord in the 11th cycle. Even though I have a strong tolerance for pain, if it's that level of pleasure, I might lose my mind. Shame aside, the pleasure alone could drive me insane. At least during my time as General CO, I had the resolve of protecting Yun. But this time, if I end up being mindlessly violated, there won't be resolve or anything left. I will also have no idea what would happen to my comrades during that time. And if Sword Spear Heavenly Lord finds me, it'll be a disaster. The worst case scenario is being mindlessly violated by Glass Peacock for tens of thousands of years, only to be found by the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord of Radiance Hall and killed meaninglessly, without achieving anything, gaining no useful information, and leaving nothing behind. That can't happen. I have to escape this place, no matter what. John Myung-hoon and I grit our teeth as Golden Shaking Bird speaks with a rotting expression. It seems you are planning to resist. I would recommend against it. Provoking Glass Peacock's sadistic nature will only make the next tens of thousands of years even worse. Stop with the hopeless talk and tell us what you know about that thing. At John Myung-hoon's command, Golden Shaking Bird sighs and begins explaining about Glass Peacock. Glass Peacock is one of the Immortal Beast King candidates, and among the Immortal Beasts, they are one of the 7 who have accumulated the most ancient force. The immortal Tao they walk is the Tao of addiction. They believe that obtaining wisdom through connections with others is the ultimate form of addiction. Because of this, they are a mad lunatic who is addicted to union and indulges in dual cultivation everywhere. Their current realm is the Great Net Realm, and wait, Great Net Immortal Realm? John Myung-hoon asks in confusion. Didn't you just say they violated that seat holder, Azure Pong, for 25 million years and took the seat? Azure Pong took it back. However, Azure Pong did not retake the seat by pushing through their interpretation with their own strength, but with the help of other immortal beasts and true immortals. Because of this, Azure Pong knows that if they meet Glass Peacock again, the seat will be taken once more, so they are currently on the run. And because of that, Glass Peacock divides themselves into clones and flies across various heavenly domains, searching for Azure Pong. That means, my eyes light up. That's right. The Glass Peacock that captured us is one of the many clones. Their realm is only upper immortal. However, their true form is a true immortal who had reached the realm of an immortal lord. They are a greatly experienced and powerful earth immortal, someone we cannot defeat by power alone. They are practically no different from a Great Net Immortal. Their understanding of their immortal Tao is so high that they defeated an immortal lord as a Great Net Immortal. So if we fight, it is a guaranteed defeat. But was that really a victory through just interpretation? I don't know, and I don't want to know. Golden Shaking Bird shivers before continuing. Glass Peacock's immortal art is the Glass of Vidya Advancement Light, Lei Iming Jingong. Its ability, as you already know, it's the authority to turn the target into an idiot. That is correct. But it's not as simple as just making them idiots. It scrambles the target's sequence of time, background knowledge, and even their sense of dissonance. Then, through their own history revision, they manipulate their victims however they please. That is the truly terrifying part. It's like if the Mad Lord got an ability like Co Wheels instead of puppetry. Damn it. An ability reminiscent of Co Wheels' cunning, and a personality and lust resembling the Mad Lord's madness. A horrifying existence. Is that the end of the explanation? Yes, that is all of it. Are there any other abilities, immortal arts, or immortal treasures? There are none. That is the entirety of Glass Peacock. And, to put it in a different perspective, they are a monster who reached the realm of a mortal lord with that alone. Damn it. That just makes it even scarier. I click my tongue as I inspect the seal placed here by Glass Peacock. If the inner seal is broken, it will connect to the star vein formation outside, immediately alerting Glass Peacock to our escape. Breaking the seal itself isn't difficult. A single strike of the Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique would probably bring it down completely. However, the problem is that Glass Peacock would notice. Considering quite a bit of time has passed without them bringing Yeo Y back. It's not that they couldn't catch her, but they're probably enjoying themselves with Yeo Y while coming back. Damn it, that lust-crazed bird-brained bastard. To someone else's immortal treasure, they. But from Glass Peacock's perspective, we are likely a more tempting prey than Yeo Y, who is merely at the sacred vessel stage, so they'll be here soon enough. At the latest, they'll be here within 1 Shurchen. At the earliest, in about half a coup. I have to come up with a countermeasure within that time. John Myung-hoon, what ability does your immortal title, Heaven-Destroying One, have? Through my misfortune, I can produce an effect similar to your Extinguishing Divine, Tribulating Heavens technique. But unlike yours, it can't cover an area, at most 2 people. If I push it, I might be able to conceal 3 within my immortal title. I see. Understood. It's a much better immortal title than mine, which only avoids the gaze of the forces of light. With just a little bit of misfortune, one could hide themselves within his immortal title. I quickly formulate a plan in my head. Listen carefully, John Myung-hoon. There's a way for us to escape. I explain the plan to Golden Shaking Bird, Hong Fan, and John Myung-hoon. After hearing my explanation, Hong Fan looks pale as he speaks. That's dangerous, Master. If what Master said is true, that's a technique that hasn't even been verified yet. It won't improve unless I keep using it. Let's treat this as practice. Anyways, if I use this technique, I'll definitely be able to escape, so don't worry. That. Hong Fan looks deeply worried, and Golden Shaking Bird also looks at me skeptically. You're not just pretending like that and planning to leave me and Master behind while you escape alone, are you? To be honest, it's hard to trust Elder's words. This time as well, I will believe in you, Seo Eun-hyun. I've actually been trusting you too, Elder. Since Master believes in Elder, it must mean Elder's ability is that much profound. Although she still seems slightly dubious, she immediately switches her stance and supports me after John Myung-hoon speaks up. I nod and prepare for the plan. Good. Then let's quickly get ready. And so, we start preparing to escape from Glass Peacock's devilish clutches. Good. Glass Peacock laughs as they swing a limp chain dangling from one foot. Hike. Forgive me. Please forgive me. The attendant concubine of that brute trained well. Only half a shurchin, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself. This. Well then, I suppose I'll have to give that attendant concubine the same training I gave this one. Just imagining it is truly. It's just when Glass Peacock, visibly excited, arrives at the front of the black hole. Glass Peacock flinches for a moment before swiftly undoing the barrier hanging over the black hole and stepping into the dimensional space inside. Kuga-guga-gugu. The dimension Glass Peacock had created is now filled with countless densely packed barrier formations numbering in the thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of millions. No, this isn't just a simple barrier. Is this a reconstruction of a scene from the past? Glass Peacock's eyes glimmer with excitement as they transform. Their transformed body has no distinguishable gender. Their face is androgynous, and their hair is pure white. From their white hair, a glass-like seven-colored light shimmers faintly. Impressive. To escape this immortal's revision, despite being mere fledglings who barely reached vestige liberation immortal and a toy created by the Golden Divine. Good. Very good. How exciting. Quadaduk. Glass Peacock's hand glows with light as they grip the outermost barrier. Their gaze pierces through to Seo Eun-hyun, who is unfolding a barrier at the innermost part of the formation. Where are the others hiding? Glass Peacock darts their eyes around, searching for their prisoners. Seo Eun-hyun smiles faintly and speaks. Who knows? It seems they've escaped. If you don't hurry and chase them, they'll leave for another heavenly domain. At those words, Glass Peacock responds while looking at Seo Eun-hyun as if finding him cute. You're acting so cute. It makes me want to lay you down and scratch your belly. I can see the lump of misfortune behind you. I've seen the Golden Divine's extinguishing divine tribulating heavens technique many times. Do you think I wouldn't notice? You're like an animal burying its head in the bushes, leaving its body exposed, thinking that if it can't see others, others can't see it. It's so cute I could go crazy. Undo the barrier and greet this immortal. If you don't, and this immortal has to break through all these barriers to reach you, then that is already a battle. Right now, this immortal just planned to abduct you, have my way with you briefly, and then let you go. Since there hasn't been any battle so far, you're merely prisoners of this immortal. However, Glass Peacock's eyes glint with a dangerous light. If you engage in battle with this immortal and are caught afterward, you will become this immortal's spoils of war. Do not provoke this immortal's sadistic desires. If you become spoils of war, it won't end in just a few thousand years. You will be violated for hundreds of thousands of years instead. So, if you do not want to suffer that much, undo the barrier quickly. Obediently reveal your main bodies and accept this immortal. I apologize, but as this junior does not have the time, I do not think I will be able to do that. There are things I must do, you see. For beings at the rank of true immortals, who live eternally, to claim to have no time, is that not a laughable excuse? At most, it's only a few 10,000 years. During those few 10,000 years, it's not as if you will be engaging only in dual cultivation with this immortal. This immortal will teach you and grant breaks as well. Half a kush should suffice, don't you think? There's no need to worry about boredom. This immortal will shower you with pleasure without pause. How exactly do you plan to violate us? My comrade asks if it wouldn't be possible for you to transform into a human form of the opposite gender for the act. That could have been the case. If you hadn't tried to flee upon seeing this immortal and had simply accepted obediently, this immortal might have at least used a form of your species. Gender and age are at this immortal's whim. However, you attempted to run. Even now, you are rejecting this immortal. For that crime of insolence, your request cannot be granted. But worry not. Regardless of gender, age, race, or realm, this immortal will open up a world of pleasure beyond your imagination. Glass Peacock's eyes glimmer with madness as they speak. To not experience dual cultivation with this immortal is akin to losing out on the entirety of life. Currently, all the true immortals of Mount Sumru number fewer than 10,000, and more than 90% of them have shared a connection with this immortal. Think of it as a sort of initiation. Now then, do not anger this immortal. Open the barrier. Woo-woo. Glass Peacock's androgynous body shifts, taking on a gender. Taking the form of a voluptuous woman with pure white hair, Glass Peacock stands naked and smiles at Seo Eun-hyun. They licks their lips and, with an alluring expression, stretches their hand towards Seo Eun-hyun. Now, open it. I won't say it twice. Seo Eun-hyun closes his eyes, bringing his hands together as if in prayer. I must decline. I am being pursued, so it is difficult to stay in one place. What a poor move. Glass Peacock, who had been attempting to seduce Seo Eun-hyun with their bare form, hardens their expression and shifts their gender once again. Kadudaduk. Glass Peacock's body morphs into that of a heavily muscular male from the fighting ghost race, filled with bulging muscles. Standing completely bare in the form of a fighting ghost race male, Glass Peacock looks at Seo Eun-hyun with a face filled with excitement as they lift their erect lower half and speaks. Since you're from the human race, I thought I'd start with something relatively normal for you, but that won't be necessary. You will be the first to be violated, and I will take the form the human race despises the most. Kwalong. Glass Peacock charges forward and headbutts the barrier, shattering it. Heck-on. However, only the outermost barrier collapses. Glass Peacock's eyes flash with a sharp light. I see. This barrier's structure is. Seo Eun-hyun focuses his mind in silence. A creation of the heavenly craftsman. It must be an immortal treasure of the liberation's supreme deity. Keying. Seo Eun-hyun does not answer. Instead, he forms a hand seal and chants an invocation. Before long, the basic spells he learned from Changmon, Ryong move according to his will, restoring the barrier formation shattered by Glass Peacock. Seo Eun-hyun half opens his eyes and looks at Glass Peacock. I drew upon the structure of the serving command palace and the power of the immortal treasure liberation seal from the canvas of myriad forms and connections and manifested it with Yun's play. Wu-wong. Inside Seo Eun-hyun's body, from the artificial stars, the dance of puppets pulling forth Seo Eun-hyun's past is unfolding. Afterward, using curses, I created the barrier by mimicking the structure of the serving command palace and serving command seal, and flipped the concept through reversal. As a result, the authority of liberation transformed into the authority of sealing. Regardless of this or that, this is a reversal of the liberation supreme deity's liberation. Even with Glass Peacock's strength, they cannot destroy it all at once. However, Glass Peacock wears an exhilarated smile and once again smashes the outer barrier. Quorum. Glass Peacock punches through barriers as they approach Seo Eun-hyun. Several 100 million layers of barriers protect Seo Eun-hyun, and they are powerful barriers created by reversing the authority of the liberation supreme deity. But that's all it is. Without even grasping a fragment of the liberation supreme deity's authority, and without even walking their immortal path, doing this is pointless. There's no need for history revision, no need for the immortal Tao's authority, no need for immortal arts. I can just crush it all with brute force. Ahaha. Quam. Quam. Each time Glass Peacock breaks through a barrier, their appearance shifts, changing into different silver-haired members of various races as they near Seo Eun-hyun. The barriers Glass Peacock destroys soon begin to repair themselves, restored by the structure of the serving command palace. Though Glass Peacock continues to break the barriers, before long, even they find themselves trapped within the barriers. And then, it happens. Now, John Myung-hoon. Woo-woo. The mass of misfortune behind Seo Eun-hyun enters the uppermost layer of the serving command palace's structure, which is replicated exactly within the barrier formation. Inside that lump of misfortune, John Myung-hoon, Golden Shaking Bird, and Hong Fan simultaneously activate the teleportation formation at the highest floor. Liberation. Normally, a true immortal would never be able to move through a teleportation formation only fit for the lower realm. However, due to Seo Eun-hyun's reversal, John Myung-hoon is thrust into the concept of liberation. The power of the teleportation formation combines with the authority of liberation manifested by Seo Eun-hyun. Within the teleportation formation, everything inside is sent outside all the barriers. Thus, within the dimensional space of the black hole, only Seo Eun-hyun and Glass Peacock remain. Glass Peacock smirks, straightening their lower body even more firmly. Cute thing. In this case, can't I just simply go outside and bring them back home? Glass Peacock narrows their eyes. Wu-wong. A powerful attraction force is holding them in place. An overwhelming attraction force, as if compressing the universe into a single point. At the same time, at the outermost edge of the barrier, they see a jade of yin-yang 5 elements emerge. The jade of yin-yang 5 elements jade continues to contract, gradually intensifying the attraction force. Glass Peacock trembles with excitement, their face flushing and their lower body straightening further. This is good. Absolutely marvelous. It's something worth savoring. But something like this alone cannot stop this immortal. Even if you've managed to trap this immortal's physical body. Wu-wong. If I revise history. Glass Peacock, who is about to revise history to capture the fleeing John Myung-hoon, suddenly flinches. The John Myung-hoon they need to include as a target for history revision is no longer within their senses. Glass Peacock frowns. Misfortune. Is it the extinguishing divine, tribulating heavens technique? How troublesome. I can't find him without going there myself. No choice, then. Glass Peacock turns their rolling eyes towards Seo Eun-hyun and smiles. This immortal will capture you here, violate you until you lose your mind, crush your little tricks, and then go catch the rabble of the Golden Divine. Quaching. Glass Peacock begins breaking through the inner barriers that are pulling them with attraction force as they approach Xiao Unhian. Quang, quang, quang. Glass Peacock smashes through the barriers relentlessly, drawing closer to me. But at what point did it begin? The number of times they need to strike a wall has increased. Quang, quang, quang. It now takes 3 strikes for them to break through a single barrier. Have the barriers become stronger? No. Ziying. I feel an overwhelming sense of dread as I deploy, filling the heavens governing view with all my strength. Phenomena extinguishing mantra. And filling the heavens governing view. The barrier that mimics and reverses the Liberation Palace is nothing more than a distraction, a means to buy time. The real plan relies on these 2 immortal arts. Using attraction force to bind Glass Peacock so they cannot leave, and using filling the heavens governing view to make them fail to come closer. Glass Peacock must now remain trapped here until John Myung-hoon, Golden Shaking Bird, Hong Fan, and the others escape from the Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain. Of course, I can't hold them here with just my own strength. Even if their feet are tied by my immortal arts, they will continue pressing forward. Whether I endure until John Myung-hoon's party escapes, or whether I'm captured, violated, and lose my mind before they leave the heavenly domain. That's the point where victory or defeat will be decided. If John Myung-hoon's party escapes, I, too, have a way to flee. So, please succeed. Thus, wagering my chastity on the line, I engage Glass Peacock with my immortal arts.